Is it time?
It is time for us to do what we have been doing, and that time is every day.
We'll know in a very short period of time, but it looks like it could be something that will be not good. Believe me, not good.
I see issue with that. And again, hey.
You're not going to be able to insult your way to the presidency. That's not going to happen.
I don't know who created Pokemon Go, but I'm trying to figure out how we get them to have Pokemon go to the polls.
I'm Ted Cruz, and my pronoun is kiss my ass.
So when you think about it, there is great significance to the passage of time in terms of what we need to do to lay these wires, what we need to do to create these jobs.
America is a nation that can be defined in a single word. I was going to put him.
Not good. Believe me, not good.
Hello, dissidents. Welcome, one and all, to a Tuesday matinee edition of the Do Dissidents podcast. Keaton Weiss here with Russell Dobular, of course.
Hello.
Hello, everybody. How's everybody doing? I got my one of the.
All right.
I'm going to see the cherry orchard tonight.
That's right. You look dressed for the theater. You look vital. Yeah, Lee Ho Fooks. I didn't really mean the clothing. I meant the hair, You know, your hair looks like it's done up. You got color in your face. You look like you're getting outside a little bit now as spring approaches.
Well, I've had time to go to the gym the last month or so, and there's a steam room there, man. That has an enormous effect on your skin, I think.
Yeah, that breathes life into you. Yeah.
It really does.
Yeah.
Nice schwitz.
Yeah.
You know?
Yep, that's what they say.
You don't get heat stroke, you come out feeling like $1 million bucks.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. I was just making sure I didn't leave my lunch bowl on the bookshelf. We were cramming to get the show in order today. A lot of stuff, a lot of late breaking stuff. The Virginia Giuffre story had a late breaking development. I actually made some exhibits during the countdown because I just discovered it. Well, that's one of those stories. You have to check it like very often because, you know, that's the kind of thing where there could be late breaking stuff. And if you don't catch it,
she could be dead by the time you go on the air.
Well, it apparently, fortunately, seems to be pointing in the other direction. That is a very bizarre story. We've had a few very bizarre stories on the show recently, and we'll have really a couple more today. We're not going to do a segment on this because it would be obsolete by the time we would drop clips. But, of course, today is special election day in Florida and Wisconsin, most notably. And so there will be big news tonight. Man, the conservatives are really all in on that Brad Schimmel guy. They really he's their
knee pad Brad.
Their fling. Knee pad Brad. Yes, he is their new crush. So we'll see how knee pad Brad does, and then in Florida, obviously, you have a special election for Mike Waltz's seat. So that'll be a lot to talk about on Thursday and a lot to watch for tonight for all you news junkies out there. But why don't we get into it now?
All right. It seems like only yesterday that love was in bloom when MAGA influencer Ashley Sinclair put out this missive that melted every lady's heart with its romantic overtones. 5 months ago, I welcomed a new baby into the world. Elon Musk is the father. Says you. I have not previously disclosed this to protect our child's privacy and safety, but in recent days, it has become clear that tabloid media intends to do so regardless of the harm it will cause. I don't know if anyone has told Miss Sinclair that she is tabloid media.
Right.
But okay. Her peers in tabloid media. I intend to allow our child to grow in a normal and safe environment. And you fucked Elon Musk?
Yeah.
Really? For that reason, I ask that the media honor our child's privacy and refrain from invasive reporting. Now, with such an auspicious beginning, who would have thought this would all end in tears? But here you go. Elon Musk's baby mama, Ashley Sinclair, sells her $100,000 Tesla after MAGA X cuts child support in half. Now, this is the video that's been going around of her speaking to the press as the car is taken away. But we with our Crackerjack team of sleuths, were able to dig up an earlier video she did discussing her relationship with Elon Musk. So here's a little bit of that.
Has 15 total.
What? Whoa. He fathered 15 children?
Yes.
So no, you're not going to see that one anywhere else. That's what we call in the news biz an exclusive. But here's the video that's been going around.
Selling it because I need to make up for the 60% cut that Elon made to our son's child support.
Why do you think that he did that?
That's a great question for him.
You feel like he was sort of When was the last time that you spoke to him or tried to speak to him?
February 13th.
But he's just not responding to you at all. How would you characterize sort of the way that he's going about
you can check the stocks. I am I'm not the only one
Who
who's
owns it?
cleaning up after his messes.
Ooh, you're gonna make Elon cry in interviewing him. Doesn't she know about all the pension funds that hold Tesla stocks?
What a
and
crew.
there goes the Tesla. You know, I can understand why she's so confused and downhearted about this. Elon seems like such a stand-up guy. He seems like a stand-up guy. Who could have seen this coming?
No, this is reality. This is like a reality TV show. This would be the Real Housewives of Rhodesia.
I mean, it really is. It's the Jerry Springer show for rich people.
Yeah, it's basically Keeping Up with the Kardashians meets Jerry Springer set in, dystopia.
It's not my baby. St. Clair filed a paternity and a custody lawsuit in a New York court on February 21st, claiming Musk told her to keep the baby secret, then ghosted her and their son in the middle of child support negotiations, forcing her to go public and take legal action. A source close to the case told Daily Mail that since going public, Musk has retaliated by slashing her payments in half unilaterally, leaving St. Clair struggling to make ends meet. He does not seem like an impulsive, vindictive guy like that. The guy who called a heroic Thai diver a pedo because he pointed out what a moron he was for suggesting sending a submarine into a cave system. The source described the billionaire's actions as shocking and shameful. Ever since she got pregnant and then had the baby, Elon's been providing support money to her, the source said. But he had a fairly specific list of requirements, including not acknowledging he's the father. When this thing went into court for custody and paternity, he cut the support payments way back. He cut it by more than half. It's a substantial reduction, and he obviously did it as a form of retaliation for her going into court, the source claimed. Musk's lawyers successfully petitioned the New York judge to seal the case on March 14th, keeping its details secret and limiting St. Clair's ability to speak out. Quote, this guy who is supposedly dedicated to transparency and accountability in government, the first thing he did when he went into court was to try to gag Ashley so that she couldn't say anything, even as he was unilaterally cutting her support, the source said. St. Clair's custody petition, obtained by Daily Mail before the case was sealed, made damning claims against the confirmed father of 12 by 3 women. She stated she was ready to go all in on the relationship, agreeing to relocate to Austin, Texas upon the child's birth, then switching to remaining in New York at his request from July last year. But the court documents paint a callous picture of Musk, claiming he chose not to be present at his son's birth, that he has only met him 3 times, and has had no involvement in his care and upbringing. All right, so this is really a case of everyone's a terrible person. Yes, it's pretty clear that she was trying to use the putang to hook the world's richest man. Oh yeah, I'll move to Austin. No, that's okay. That's okay. You stay in New York. At the same time, you have Elon Musk trying to do this Genghis Khan thing and just spread his seed far and wide with a conservative movement that prides itself on family values, fully embracing, if not a deadbeat dad, certainly an absent one, except for the one he likes to carry around like Baby Yoda with him everywhere that he goes. That kid is going to wind up a reality show, and it's going to be set in a rehab one day.
Russell, he likes people. Don't you understand? The New World Order, they hate people. He's just trying to make more people.
He's just trying to make more people.
Just trying to make more people.
He has
should
to
get married and do it one woman, but sometimes they don't do it
single-handedly.
Yeah.
So Elon actually responded to this. I don't know if the child is mine or not, but I'm not against finding out. No court order is needed. Despite not knowing for sure, I have given Ashley $2.5 million, and I'm sending her $500K a year. Now, I'm just going to say, I'd be the last person to speak out. Like I said, I'm sure. Look, man, you fuck this guy without a condom. Yeah, man, you're trying to get knocked up by this rich guy. I mean, absolutely, sure. So I'm not defending her. At the same time, anyone who's going to say, well, you can't get by on that. Okay, the reason that cutting the money in half like that is retaliatory is because, okay, you're expecting this amount of money that's going to be reflected in the level of expenses you've cultivated.
Yeah.
So now you got to move out of your apartment. Like, why does she have to sell the car? Because she's maintaining a lifestyle based on $500 a year. He cut it to $250 a year. She probably can't afford the place she lives anymore, and so on. That's why
I gotta
it's retaliatory. I'll be the first one to say these are first world problems. But people have asked, like, why does she have to sell the Tesla? That's probably why, because she's living like somebody who's getting 500 and now she gets 250. She can't meet the nut she cultivated based on that.
Yeah, exactly. These people live like kings because they can afford to, and they assume that money's going to keep coming in. And then when that gets cut in half, that really hurts their feelings. I do have to say, for a guy who's so obsessed with rooting out waste, fraud, and abuse, $2.5 million plus $500,000 a year for a kid you don't even know is yours. That's not very DOGE-like. It's not very DOGE-like, right? I thought we're supposed to track where the money goes. We're not supposed to give money to people who don't deserve it. So he's saying, I won't even verify whether the kid is mine or not, but hey, I'll send you $2.5 million anyway. That seems kind of wasteful to me. Yeah, I guess now he went DOGE on his own kid though, by cutting the child support payments. Practicing what he preaches.
He is practicing what he preaches. He's probably getting this money from the 250-year-olds that he's cutting off from Social Security. So Ms. Sinclair responded, Elon, we asked you to confirm paternity through a test before our child, who you named, was even born. You refused. And you weren't sending me money. You were sending support for your child that you thought was necessary until you withdrew most of it to maintain control and punish me for disobedience. But you're really only punishing your son. It's ironic that your last effort in court was to try to gag me while you use a social media channel you literally own to distribute derogatory messages about me and our child to the entire world. It's all about control with you, and everyone can see it. America needs you to grow up, you petulant man-child. No lies detected. So Laura Loomer, classy lady, classiest lady on the internet, responds, Ashley, you don't need $3 million to raise a baby. This is so outrageous that you had sex without birth control. What about Elon? I mean, he was there too, right? Shouldn't trick him, right? You seem to have plotted for many years how to get Elon Musk to knock you up, and now you're complaining because you want more money for a baby. In what world does it cost more than $500,000 a year to raise a baby? Not to mention you were making over $25,000 a month on X payouts. How does one person need that much money to survive? This is an insult to everyone. Ashley St. Clair, you are trying to cash out on a billionaire who you baby trapped. I don't really disagree with that as far as it goes, except in that it takes two to tango. And, Musk, as we know from his wealth of baby mamas and his Genghis Khan-like tribe, he doesn't put a beanie on that peenie either. So, to just entirely blame this woman is a little one-sided. Kim weighs in with a bit of sense, like she does. No one needs that kind of money, but if some of Elon's kids live like their dad is the wealthiest man on earth, then all of his children should live like it. Fair enough. I'd say that's a fair take. But this is definitely a story about all the worst people on earth are having a fight.
Yeah, I would say, you touched on it earlier, okay? You need to practice what you preach in terms of family values, especially if you're going to go into politics. I feel like, how they have the nicotine patch for people, it helps them quit smoking because it gives them a little nicotine fix so they don't go for the cigarette. They need that for like women. They need to give men
they need
with
like
high
the pussy
ambition.
patch.
They need a pussy patch, right? You need that for pussy because it gets to a point where story after story after story is just more and more trouble. Now, the thing about this is this makes RFK look like he got off easy. I rented her a house in Malibu. I shipped her a car, and I was done with it. That's all. This guy's got child support now for all these years, 15 kids. You can't be swinging your dick around everywhere.
She gets the royalties from my book.
Yeah, right. She gets the royalties from my book. Exactly. Yeah. I mean, it just, find a nice woman, be nice to her, have your kids, have as many as you want, have as many as she wants. Matt Walsh, what has he got? 5, 6 kids now? Lives in Tennessee. He's got a woman who likes him, keeps her happy. That's it. That's it. Enough is enough. Ganook is Ganook, as they say. Yes, he lives his values.
Lives his values.
Stays out of trouble.
Argue with that.
Exactly. Stays out of trouble.
Married to one woman, no divorce, lots of kids.
That's it. That's how you got to do it. That's how you got to do it. This is just problem after problem after problem. But it really is. It is just a reality show. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, it's actually, if you look at his conduct, if you look at Elon specifically, it's a great example of how they want to restore a kind of feudal order where they get to live like potentates. Right. I mean, this is some old world royal bastards running around the countryside kind of shit, where you just kind of do what you want, knock up the servants in the castle,
right?
Have them all running around with your illegitimate kids. And, you don't have to acknowledge them or actually spend time with them, and who's going to hold you accountable. And certainly the peasants that worship Elon are not going to hold him accountable. It's amazing how they'll be like, he's so adorable with his son. What about the other 90?
Yeah. Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. With the one son. No, exactly. And, man, I mean, the other thing is, look, you clearly live as though money is no object because it's no object. And so, of course, you're going to get people who try to suck it out of you. Yeah. Like, I think that's pretty obvious. And so, now she's saying that he cut the child support by 60%. She's got to sell her car. I mean, yeah, look, she's chasing the cameras. That's what this is. It's reality TV. It's reality TV. And she's an influencer herself, right? I mean, so she's like a media personality. Like, this is what she's going to do. She's used this is her bread and butter. This is her skill set. It's right in her wheelhouse. That's why I'm saying, man, you gotta just live a little simpler. I know it's probably tempting if you're worth $400 billion, but at the end of the day, is it worth all this? Is it worth all this? I mean, did he have to bang her? Like, if you take that time of your life, he's on a mission. Isn't it less trouble? Yeah,
he's on a mission. These people are all just disgusting. They're all just disgusting. And Elon is clearly very motivated by revenge. He funded an entire presidential campaign so that he could go after the agencies that were investigating him. I mean, it really looks like that's largely the motivation. And I've mentioned right now I'm doing a lot of research on the cradle of civilization, on Mesopotamia, on the earliest civilizations. And, these stories are just, you'll see it if you read the Bible, right, which deals with this era. When you have the kinds of people who seek power and you give them no check on their power, you take that to its logical extreme. It's full of them having the scribes write down how many eyes they had gouged out when they took the city and how they covered the walls with the skin of the people there. And, it's the same mentality. Like, when you give people that much power and you don't check it, they have no morals. They have no morals, and they are just able to act on whatever dark, vengeful impulse that they have. Over millennia of struggle, people asserted laws and rules that would, to some extent, check the worst impulse of the powerful. And those checks are being dismantled. And this is the result, that you would have people who are avowedly conservative celebrating this absentee father who just keeps knocking up all his employees.
Yep, it is quite the scene. Quite the scene. Decadence, just like Rome, right? All right, Dixon Cider, thanks for the $2. Big fan of Russell's OnlyFans. Keep him feet pics a coming. Yeah, thank you for that. Jazz Yacht Rocker says Musk isn't banging anyone. They're all artificial insemination. Did he use IVF for some of them? I think they're not all that, obviously. But yeah, I don't know if he used that for some of them. That's what somebody. There was some story about, right? About how
I heard something like that. I mean, I honestly have not followed that all that closely.
Yeah, something about how he has great genes and wants to do as Alex Jones said. He just he loves kids. They like kids. Like I say, they like kids.
Not in an Epstein kind of way.
Yeah, no. He loves kids. He loves people. That's what it was. He loves people. He wants to make more people. Loves kids. He loves people. Exactly. All right. What do we got here? Beautiful. All right. We got 1,200 strong in the YouTube chat. We got 545 strong in the Rumble chat. Thanks, everybody, very much for being here today. Killer Hinton says, witness elimination by bus crash makes me think of a comedy gem from 1976 called Murder by Death. It's a hoot. Amazing cast, including Peter Sellers.
I know what movie you're talking about.
I never saw that one. Okay. All right. We're going to keep going. All right. So this is another weird one. Okay. Which just got weirder about an hour before we went on air. So Virginia Giuffre, is it Giuffre or Giuffre? Virginia Giuffre. I think it's Giuffre. Virginia Giuffre says she has 4 days to live. So this was everywhere last night. This write-up is in The Cut. Virginia Roberts Giuffre, one of the most outspoken survivors of Jeffrey Epstein and his co-conspirators, claims she has 4 days left to live. In an Instagram post from Sunday, Giuffre wrote that she was involved in a car accident with a speeding school bus that allegedly resulted in kidney failure. Now, I've watched a couple other YouTubers cover this, and they insist that they shouldn't show the wounds on her face for some risk of age restriction. It seems kind of ridiculous to me because the wounds aren't even that graphic. There's not really blood. It's just some bruises, but whatever. I followed their lead just for safety's sake. Figure they know better than me. So she posts on Instagram, this year has been the worst start to a new year, but I won't bore anyone with the details. But I think it important to note that when a school bus driver comes at you driving 110 kilometers an hour, she means, as we were slowing for a turn, that no matter what your car is made of, it may as well be a tin can. I've gone into kidney renal failure. They've given me 4 days to live, transferring me to a specialist hospital in urology. I'm ready to go, just not until I see my babies one last time. But you know what they say about wishes? Shit in one hand and wish in the other, and I guarantee it's still going to be shit at the end of the day. Thank you all for being the wonderful people of the world and for being a great part of my life. God bless you all. So she says, thank you all for being the wonderful people of the world. Thank you all. It's important to remember that a little bit. Giuffre has been battling Epstein and his network, which she says trafficked her beginning when she was 16 in court for years. She first came forward about her experience in the Daily Mail back in 2011, alleging she had been recruited by Ghislaine Maxwell in 2000 while working at Donald Trump's Mar-a-Lago resort. Interesting. That detail I had not heard before, and spent the next few years being abused by Epstein and others while caught up in his sex trafficking circle. 2 years earlier, she had settled a $500,000 sexual abuse lawsuit against Epstein, which was unsealed in 2022. She also sued Maxwell, who was serving a 20-year sentence after being convicted of child sex trafficking, for defamation and settled in 2017. In 2021, Giuffre filed a civil claim against Prince Andrew, a former friend of Epstein's, who she says assaulted her, she'll say, while she was being trafficked by Epstein and his associates. Andrew has denied the allegations, but he too settled his case with Giuffre in 2022. The financial terms have not been made public, but tabloids and legal experts have estimated it was somewhere around $13 million. Yeah, that's a whole lot of denial right there. $13 million worth. That's quite the big payment. So this is her Instagram profile, Virginia Roberts. It's her maiden name. Pursuit of justice doesn't stop with Epstein. The elites who trafficked me and so many others are going down. The house of cards will begin to fall. That's in her bio. And Nick Sorter tweets out this video from NBC News. This is from years back, talking about her run-in with Prince Andrew.
I was so young. Keelan woke me up in the morning and said, "You're going to meet a prince today." I didn't know at that point that I was going to be trafficked to that prince. And then that night, Prince Andrew came to her house in London, and we went out to Club Tramp. Prince Andrew got me alcohol. It was in the VIP section. I'm pretty sure it was vodka. Prince Andrew was like, "Let's dance together." And I was like, okay. And we leave Club Tramp, and I hop in the car with Ghislaine and Giuffre, and Ghislaine said he's coming back to the house, and I want you to do for him what you do for Epstein. I just couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe that even royalty were involved.
Pretty scary stuff. Here she is, very vocal about being trafficked as a young teen out of Mar-a-Lago.
I mean, if she was very young, if she knew more about the history of these criminal aristocrats, she would have been surprised if they weren't involved.
Well, yes, especially the royal family. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yes, 100%. But as is the point of these stories, very, very young. So why would she know at the time? The Epstein files were never released, and now the only outspoken survivor is dying, or so has been reported thus far. So here she is talking about having been recruited out of Mar-a-Lago.
I was recruited at a very young age from Mar-a-Lago and entrapped in a world that I didn't understand, and I've been fighting that very world to this day, and I won't stop fighting. I will never be silenced until these people are brought to justice. So,
one more time.
I was recruited at a very young age from Mar-a-Lago.
I was recruited at a very young age from Mar-a-Lago. So, we're going to do more about this on Sunday because we switched to Rumble anyway, so we'll go into more detail about this. But I don't know what it is. Is it because a lot of people who are into the, conspiracy theory, rabbit hole stories tend to be more MAGA aligned? So maybe this just never really caught on in the way that it would have had Donald Trump been a Democrat, running for office as a Democrat. But sure seems like he's tied to Epstein more than like the general public really knows. I did not know that she had been recruited into his sex trafficking ring from Mar-a-Lago, as she says there. Did you know that until this? I didn't know that detail.
I'm pretty sure I did. I did.
Yeah.
Like at the time when her story was really blowing up, I think there was a fair amount of reporting on that.
I mean, I knew they were friends, obviously, Trump and Epstein. They've been on camera together. He's talked about how he knew Epstein. That detail was not on my radar, but that is pretty strange stuff. What makes things even stranger, though, is this write-up in People magazine, and this is from Australian news. It's now been picked up by multiple outlets. Police detail minor crash with no reported injuries in crash reportedly involving Jeffrey Epstein's accuser, Virginia Giuffre. So the first anybody had heard about this was from her Instagram post. That was from Sunday. It's now Tuesday. We didn't know of any police report of the accident. There was no video of the accident. There was no description of the bus driver. Was the bus driver hurt in the crash, not hurt in the crash? We heard no details about this except for a post on her Instagram. So now, when we find out more information, we hear the police describe this as a minor crash with no reported injuries. After Virginia Giuffre, who previously accused late convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein and Prince Andrew of sexual abuse, claims she has 4 days to live following an incident in Australia, officials have confirmed a minor crash between a bus and a car. Though Australian officials released details on the aforementioned auto accident to People when asked about Giuffre's claims, it was not confirmed if the incident was connected to Giuffre, 41. There were no serious injuries and nobody was taken to hospital, according to authorities. The Western Australia police said the collision happened in near Gabby. Is that how you say that? My resident Aussie adjacent fellow.
I mean, those people are crazy. Probably.
All right. Near Gabby, 12 miles north of Perth, shortly after 3 p.m. local time on March 24th, and there were, quote, no reported injuries in the crash in a statement to People. The collision was reported by the bus driver the following day. What? The following day? So it wasn't reported at all the day of? The car sustained approximately $2,000 worth of damage. Police
this is
said
very weird.
in
This
a
is
statement.
very weird story.
It's very weird, and it gets even weirder. Acting Police Commissioner Kylie Whiteley confirmed during a press conference on Tuesday, April 1st, that the incident involved a 71-year-old woman at the wheel of the car and a 41-year-old woman, which is Giuffre's age, in the passenger seat, news.com.au, Australia, reported. On Saturday, March 30th, Giuffre posted on Instagram of herself covered in bruises in the hospital. She said she was hit by a school bus driver, and the doctor told her she had, quote, 4 days to live after going into renal failure. Giuffre's father, Sky Roberts, told the UK news outlet The Telegraph in an update, she's not doing good. She's depressed because she misses her kids. She's got 4 days unless she gets another opinion from another doctor. He is estranged from his daughter and has not seen her since the crash, according to news.com.au. In an Instagram post shared on March 22nd, which would have been, I guess, 2 days prior to the crash, Giuffre spoke about how she misses her children very much and that they had been poisoned with lies, suggesting a possible separation from Robert, who was her children's father. Giuffre's spokesperson, Dinny Von Muffing, said in a statement to BBC following her Instagram post on Sunday, Virginia has been in a serious accident and is receiving medical care in the hospital. She greatly appreciates the support and well wishes people are sending. So there's a lot strange about this so far.
What the fuck?
A lot. Very weird. Very weird. That
Very
the
strange.
accident was not reported until the next day, that the police are saying there were only minor injuries reported, or no serious injuries reported in a minor crash. And now you add to this, which just broke, like I said, an hour before we went on the air, Jeffrey Epstein victim Virginia Giuffre offers new details after claiming she had just days to live after bus crash. So this just came out before we went on the air. I put this slideshow together during the countdown. Jeffrey Epstein victim Virginia Roberts Giuffre has offered more details about the horrific bus crash that she claims left her with just 4 days left to live. A statement from Giuffre's spokesperson seemed to dispute the sex trafficking victim's assertion that she was near death, saying that the mother of three was in serious condition at an Australian hospital. After police said there were no reported injuries in the crash between Giuffre's car and the bus, a spokesperson for Epstein's most prominent victim has insisted she was forced to go to the hospital after her condition worsened several days later. So according to this person, she did not go from the crash site to the hospital. You would think if a bus runs into your car, you're
Right.
going to go get checked out at the hospital.
Right. And
I
if
mean,
you had that kind of kidney damage, how would you not?
how would you not know?
How would you even
until,
like be okay for a few days like that?
Yeah, it's so bizarre. Virginia was banged up and bruised and returned home, a spokesperson for Giuffre told the Post. Virginia's condition worsened and she was admitted to hospital. Now, this is where it gets too crazy. Concerning her Instagram post, Virginia thought that she had posted on her private Facebook page.
What difference does that even make, though?
The statement went on, today she remains in serious condition while receiving medical care. Well, what difference would it make? And also,
Right. Yeah.
how could you accidentally post to your public Instagram account
Right.
when you are this public figure for reasons that everybody is going to be suspicious when a thing like this happens in the first place? And if you look here, being wonderful people of the world and for being a great part of my life, God bless you all. I don't know. That sounds like it's addressed to everybody. I don't buy that she meant to post that as part of a private Facebook post. I don't buy that you would accidentally, post this out to the world, given the fact
so
that...
why? Like, what's the point?
Like, what
why,
the hell?
Why would she do that?
Somebody
Like,
needs
why?
to figure out what the hell is going on, as Donald Trump would say. What the hell is going on? Because my first thoughts about this were like, look, and obviously you always have to be careful how you talk about this stuff. We can't make any accusations. There's no accusation to make at this point. There's no person we could accuse of doing anything. But, we were supposed to get these Epstein files. They were delayed. They're supposed to come out any day now, but we have not seen any follow-up to this. And now you have arguably the most high-profile Epstein accuser who has received a lot of money in payouts from both Epstein and Prince Andrew getting run down by a school bus. Now, school buses are, famously, just about as safe a vehicle as you can drive. They're built like tanks for obvious reasons. They're often carrying 50 children at a time. Very few of them wear seatbelts. And so, school buses, like I said, are very, very strong vehicles, which means if you were going to have a death-proof situation where you're going to run into somebody and try to injure them while sustaining minimal injuries to yourself, yeah, a school bus is what you would use. I don't know in what other context a school bus would be driving 70 miles an hour down what sounds like a residential road, because if she was slowing down for a turn, that means they weren't on like a highway type situation. It means that they were obviously just driving in a residential area. So the way the crash is described, she got rear-ended. Maybe the guy took his eye off what was going on, and she slowed down to make the turn, and he maintained normal speed and hit her.
Maybe she doesn't know how to drive on the wrong side of the road.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. 68 miles an hour is very fast for a school bus to be driving down a residential road. Like, it stinks, man. Like, we can't accuse anybody of anything. We don't know enough. We don't know who we would be leveling the accusation against. But it's a very, very bizarre story. And the fact that the first we heard of it was her Instagram post, and then we find out that the accident wasn't even reported the day it happened, that it was called in the day after. No, man, I'm sorry. Like, it stinks. It stinks. And it's a very, very bizarre story. And now the cleaning up of, well, we're not saying she has 4 days left to live. It almost sounds like she's in the hospital for some other reason.
Right.
That's what it sounds like to me. Again, we don't know. The post suggests maybe 2 days prior that she was on the outs with the father of her children. I don't know if they're married or what, but that could be. I mean, there's a million things you could speculate, but it's such a bizarre story. And look, man, the weirdness of this compounded by the fact that this is the highest profile victim of a guy who turned up dead in his jail cell before he could sing. And so it's an extremely, extremely strange story unfolding now. Obviously, we hope she's okay. At first, it looked very grim. Now they're saying perhaps she doesn't have 4 days to live. Really weird stuff. Really eerie.
Yeah, well, first of all, why would you whack her now? Like, she said everything she has to say.
And she's been paid,
She named all the names she needed to name, and she's been paid. These people at Dershowitz and all of these others are going to go on to deny it. I think she's the one who named Bill Richardson, and there were other there are a lot of names that got named that haven't really been very,
and some of them were named by Jane Doe's. They weren't all named by people who've come forward.
They weren't, right. Yeah. But it's all out there now. Like, why would you try to whack her now? And on the other side, like, what's the point of making something like that up? I mean, it's like predicting. It's like when you're a cult leader and you predict the end of the world. That always backfires, because when it doesn't end, it makes you look bad.
Yeah.
I'm going to be dead in 4 days. So if you're making it up, what do you think's going to happen in 4 days when you're not dead?
Yeah, either you're making it up or you're making up how you got there. Are you in the hospital for some other reason? Was there something else that happened that wasn't this bus crash? Or were you in the accident and then something else happened and now you're going there because you're saying it's in the aftermath of a bus crash? I mean, the details seem to match up. I mean, the police report said it was a 41-year-old in the car. She's 41 years old. The location matches up. But the story just seems so strange. If you were in an accident, if a fucking bus runs you off the road and rear ends your car, of course you go get checked out at the hospital the day of. And of course there's a police report. How could there not be? If there's not, who was driving the bus? I mean, it's a school bus, right? So the guy who's driving the bus, whoever's driving the bus is answering to an organization that's going to require that you call it in and file a report. You're saying no authority learned about this accident until the day after, and now 2 days after that, she's showing up in kidney failure? It's very bizarre. It's very bizarre. I mean, talk about more questions than answered, but this whole story is just so eerie. It's so creepy. And this is why people think about things like this. It's not so much conspiracy theory as it is just speculation. I started Whitney Webb's book. I mean, this is a very, very dangerous world that she dipped her toe into. And now, there are these pending releases of files. She seems to have said everything she has to say. Who knows? Who knows if this is going to deter other people from coming forward in and around these files releases? Again, you just don't know. We can't make any accusations or any real predictions. But this story it keeps getting stranger. It was strange as soon as I heard it. A school bus driving 70 miles an hour down a residential street is very strange. That's very strange in and of itself. Rear-ending someone.
Well, maybe not in
getting
Australia. These are people who swim with great whites.
Well, that's true. That's true. This is crocodile hunter territory. Now you know that better than me. But that detail in and of itself is very weird. It's also very
they're the
weird.
most physically fearless people I've ever met.
Yeah. Well, yes, they have that reputation, for sure. But then, I mean, maybe not going to the hospital after that happens, not getting checked out after that.
She's not Australian.
Very strange. Yeah, she's not Australian. Why wouldn't she go to the hospital? Yeah. No, that is very weird. So we will maybe have more to say. I mean, hopefully we don't have more to say about it. Hopefully she recovers and she's out of the hospital. That's just a very, very strange thing to post, that you have 4 days to live and now your team is, I guess, walking that back with really no answers about the accident itself. Very, very bizarre. Really weird. All right. What do we got here? We got oh wow, we got some nice super chats coming in. Thank you, everybody. Chris Bedford, Russ, can you do a review of the information on the YouTube channel Without History? They have interesting things to say about Black African civilization's influence on Mesopotamia. Controversial.
Oh, that's
with a smiley
interesting.
face.
That's
You're reading a book about
what is,
Mesopotamia now, right?
Well, about the whole ancient
Sumeria,
world.
that whole thing. Yeah.
Yeah, basically it's from the beginning of civilization, like all of the earliest, China, India, Mesopotamia, Egypt, up through the fall of Rome.
Right. So you got Sargon of Akkad.
Yes, Sargon of Akkad, yes.
Yeah.
Hammurabi, all that stuff.
So it's called Without History. I think that's what it's called. Yeah, Without History.
I would check that out. I watch a lot of stuff like that.
Yeah, there's a wealth of stuff out there for sure. David Watson. Russell, what's the name of the book on ancient civilizations that you're reading? Oh, there you go.
You know what? I will tell you in 1 second.
There you go. Just got to look it up.
The History of the Ancient World, from the earliest accounts to the fall of Rome, Susan Wise Bauer.
Interesting. Look up WikiLeaks, says Sir Bikes-a-Lot Day, about for hacking your car. Well, who's the guy whose car drove into a tree at 90 miles an hour? Hastings? Was it the guy? Remember the young guy who, yeah, you'll know. Michael Hastings, that's the guy. He was the anti-war reporter who lost control of his vehicle and it smashed into a tree going like 90 miles an hour. He died on impact. And I think there's reason to believe that, there was some tampering with his car there. Yep. I remember that story. Pronounced tip, G-I-U equals Jew, so Giuffre. Pronounced tip, Giuffre. All right, thank you. Maybe for the next
like
time.
Giuffre.
Like Giuffre. Yeah, like Giuffre. In fact, didn't we call her Giuffre when the story broke? I think
I think we might have.
Yeah, jogs my memory.
That sounds like us.
It certainly sounds like us, yes. The same people going to these oligarchy rallies are the people spending $1,500 on tickets to Cher's farewell tour. Oh, she's doing a farewell tour? Oh, interesting. Kemen G and Alex Jones. What's that?
The 10th farewell tour.
Yeah, right, yeah.
For her.
Alex Jones. Russ and Keaton, advice from a pro. You talk too much about Musk. Reduce to 5%. 90% should be about Buck Shmuley. The rest you can devote to Russell shaving your teeth. There you go. Good advice, Alex. Thank you for that, Kemen. Appreciate that very much. What do we got here? We got Ding Dong. Doo-doo daddy, he doesn't put a beanie on that peenie. I'm trying to fix an oven here at a grocery store. I'll see you have it on speaker. There you go. Yeah. Oh man, I remember listening to like some of my old comedy podcasts while delivering food and stuff like that. And, you know, sometimes it was summertime, so you'd have the window open and I'd pull into a driveway right at the time that some very vulgar joke was cracked. Yeah, it's an occupational hazard for sure.
I mean, you know how we roll, so
Yeah.
buyer beware.
Buyer beware. That's right. All right. And that's actually one of our tamer jokes, actually. I think Beanie on the Peenie. That ain't bad. That ain't bad. Josh Wood says, I'm starting to wonder if it might be a replay of Princess Diana 3 decades ago, or will Piers Morgan and Ben Shapiro shut me up again? P.S. Minor crass is such an abysmal choice of words. Minor. Got it. Yes, I get it. I understand. John Michael says, is this just a bad case of telephone? Well, the problem with that is that there's no real telephone, because the first we heard of it was her Instagram post, which apparently, according to the police, was 2 days after the accident. So there was no initial communication. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's weird if it happens to anybody. When it happens to the most notorious Epstein accuser in the world, that adds about 10 degrees of weirdness on top of it.
Well, just the whole thing that it's a kidney injury to that point that can't be treated. Like, why wouldn't they just be able to put you on dialysis?
Right.
Like, why would that be fit? Like, the whole thing makes no sense.
Very strange story. Very strange. It's been a week of weird news between the RFK blackmail, the Elon baby mama drama, and this. This has been a very, like I said, it's been a very Thomas Pynchon week here. All right. Mark Pugliese couldn't pay her bill, gave her another 4 days. The bump. There you go. All right. Fearless except for COVID, then they panic, says John Michael. All right. Let's go on. Segment number 3. All right. This is the first real this is the first serious one of the day. I shouldn't say the Giuffre one's not serious, but it's just it's unknowable at the moment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like Schrodinger's pervert, that story.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
So we last night for movie night, we watched the gut-wrenching Academy Award winner, No Other Land. Really highly recommended. Everyone was very moved by it, very intense experience. But hey, man, the Zionists are not going to take that lying down. They've got their answer to No Other Land, called October 8th, about the wave of anti-Semitism sweeping the world after October 7th. It actually has an 80% score now on Rotten Tomatoes. It is about the emergence of anti-Semitism on college campuses, in social media, and on the streets since October 7th, 2023. The director is Wendy Sachs, and one of its main producers, and she also appears in the film, is Zionist maniac Deborah Messing. And you can see, basically, this is like a rogues gallery of all the craziest Zionists they could find. I guess they decided that Rabbi Shmuley was too much of a turnoff to normies. But you got all of them, man. Deborah Messing, Michael Rappaport, Torres.
Oh my God!
I don't know who that is. Mossab Hassan Youssef. Is that like an Uncle Habib of the
I don't know
Palestinians? I don't know who he is.
Rabbi Shmuley's food taster.
Yeah. Sheryl Sanbgerg, Scott Galloway, Barry Weiss, Dan Senior. I don't know, but Noah Tishby we all know.
Wow.
So yeah, I mean, just basically all of the worst Zionist freaks in the world are involved in this movie. So now if you look at the rating, 80% with the critics, the verified rating, we talked about this in the context of Snow White. So verified ratings are this very small group of people who book their tickets through Rotten Tomatoes. Now, if you look at the audience rating, it's actually 59%. They do not have a top critics button on this yet for some reason. I don't know why, but very often that's different from the all critics score, and lower very often. But hey, I am really looking forward to all these film channels that spend a lot of time talking about how they rig the ratings on Rotten Tomatoes to get on this, and talk about that wide variation between the very unlikely 99% verified score and the actual audience score. I'm waiting for that from those channels. So Sheryl Sanbgerg has drawn a lot of attention to this movie with a really tone-deaf video. Sheryl Sanbgerg was the COO of Meta. She is the founder of leanin.org. She was kind of at the height of it, the symbol of everything wrong with girl boss feminism, the way they would just support just identity politics and have absolutely nothing to say about economic inequality, being the beneficiary very often of economic inequality, certainly in her case, being the COO of Meta. Now, she produced Screams Before Silence, a movie that really played up the unsubstantiated allegations of mass sexual violence on October 7th. Now, Max Blumenthal tweeted out an interview where she was confronted about the lack of evidence based on a Gray Zone article. So he says, billionaire Zionist Sheryl Sanbgerg is confronted with a Gray Zone News takedown of the report she cites to bolster the narrative of her propaganda doc alleging mass rape by Hamas on October 2nd. So that you can cut it in. I'll do that again. Billionaire Zionist Sheryl Sanbgerg is confronted with a Gray Zone News takedown of the report she cites to bolster the narrative of her propaganda doc alleging mass assault, quote unquote, by Hamas on October 7th. Sanbgerg tacitly admits that she interviewed 0 survivors, claiming without evidence that they're all dead.
That's the UN. They're not exactly a pro-Israel group.
Sheryl, let me ask, because I think it's important to note, some people will counter and say, look at this article from Gray Zone. Gray Zone said Western media concocts evidence that the UN report on October 7th sex crimes failed to deliver for March 7th. They said Western media promoted a UN report as proof Hamas sexually assaulted Israelis, yet the report's authors admitted they couldn't locate a single victim, suggested Israeli officials staged a rape scene, and denounced inaccurate forensic interpretations. I just want to give you an opportunity to respond to Gray Zone's article, because I think a lot of folks have pointed to that article and the articles that that organization has put out as being representative of an alternative view that the sexual violence maybe didn't happen as evidence in your film. Maybe you can address it, give you a chance to do that.
Yeah, well, the key thing you said there is, they're asking where are the victims? Well, let me tell you where the victims are. They're dead. They're dead. That is why we called this film, Screams Before Silence.
She is really a literal crybaby, as you will see. Now, you might remember, this is about a year ago she did this interview. You might remember this whole story fell apart around that time. Kibbutz Berry rejects story in New York Times October 7th expose. They were not sexually abused. It's not true, said the kibbutz spokesperson of one of the stories featured in the paper's controversial article. 60-plus journalism professors demand investigation into controversial NYT article alleging mass rape on October 7th. Now, you might remember they had a podcast ready to go based on this article for their podcast, The Daily, and they had to pull it.
Yeah, they pulled it
because the reporting came apart. But she went ahead anyway and did this documentary making that claim and claiming there's no evidence without evidence herself that they're all dead. That's why there's no evidence. So now, with the stunning lack of self-awareness that Zionists are known for, at a moment when students are being literally grabbed off the street for writing op-eds, they decided to drop this video of the deeply unlikable Sheryl Sanbgerg talking about her fears of needing to be hidden.
Walk with one of my closest friends who's not Jewish. And just out of
Hold on, pull
nowhere,
the video
not
back so we
expecting
get the
to say
full
this,
sentence.
what
It
came out of
didn't
my
cut in.
mouth was, will you hide?
Yeah,
I was on a walk with one of my closest friends who's not Jewish. And just out of nowhere, not expecting to say this, what came out of my mouth was, will you hide me? Like, if it comes to that,
will you hide me and my family? And like, do I really think that's going to happen in the United States? No. And it was interesting because she didn't really know what I was talking about. She said, what do you mean hide you? And I explained that there are these righteous people that hid Jews. This is the story of Anne Frank. And then, of course, she said, oh, I know what you mean. But any Jew would have known what I meant immediately.
This is a woman who is worth over $2 billion, who has been accused of sexual assault herself, as we will see. They dropped this video right the week after a Turkish student is grabbed off the street for writing an op-ed. You want to say something, Keaton?
Yeah, I would just say, I mean, we'll talk about this more thoroughly at the end, but I doubt very much that her friend didn't know about Jews being hidden, during the Holocaust. I think the reason her friend responded like, what do you mean, is because it didn't occur to her that you would be so crazy as to actually
to suggest
that she should hide you. I think that's what it was. I don't think your friend had no historical point of reference for what you were talking about. I just don't think it occurred to her how unhinged you were to actually float that as a serious proposition that she was going to have to hide you in her house. I think that's what it is. I think you're not giving your friend enough credit.
This is somebody who's worth over $2 billion at a moment when people all over America, setting aside even the Gaza Palestine issue, where you've got legal immigrants being grabbed and deported to CECOT by accident, might wind up being stacked like sardines with a bunch of prisoners in El Salvador, and you're a billionaire talking about how you're fearing for your safety. Now, partly this is a result, I believe, of the way that Jews generally are brainwashed from infancy to be obsessed with this vision of anti-Semitic hordes coming to get you and the Holocaust, so that even a woman who clearly is insulated from the kinds of social realities that many Jews and non-Jews are subject to, would have this paranoid vision where she's getting choked up talking about it, because they drill that shit into you from when you're a little kid, man.
Yeah,
It's
I mean, you went to Hebrew school,
Dude, it's not even just the Holocaust, man. Like the kinds of stories they used to tell us in Hebrew school, the theme of these stories was always about Jews being oppressed and being killed for their identity, going back to biblical times.
Right.
They would tell you about, well, and he had a choice to renounce Judaism or to be killed, and he said the Shema, and they killed him. Like it's just constant stories like that. This is the result. Like, really, I'm saying she's not being insincere here. That's how fucking crazy she is. And that craziness is a result of the insanity that, I'm sorry to say, typifies the community. Obviously, it's not everybody. You have great groups like Jewish Voice for Peace reacting against it, who are able to see through it.
You have guys like us.
Man, you got guys like us, but it is part and parcel of the way of a typical Jewish upbringing. That's just the truth. And that's why so few Jews, just keeping it real, this is reality. That's why so few Jews are anti-Zionist.
Right.
I mean, I think it's probably more now, ironically enough, than it was at the beginning of this. But we did some reporting on this like a year ago, where it's like 80% supported Israel, of Jews, of American Jews. So this is what's happening at the moment that they decided this was a good idea. She was one of several authors on a rather mild op-ed. This is what happened to her. In this climate, they decided And this is how much they are in their victim bubble.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't occur to them that would be a bad look
Right.
at a moment when this is happening in real time. So you want to see how against the Zionist narrative people really are. 4.2 million views on this. And what is it? 352 likes.
Yep.
And on the ratio score, 1.5 thousand comments. I didn't even know that was possible, that you could get that many views and that few likes. That is how detestable most normal people find this.
Yeah.
And aside from that, she's worth $2.3 billion. And she's kind of made her calling card, ginning up false, unsubstantiated claims of mass sexual assault. On October 7th, she herself stands accused of sexual assault. Former Facebook executive Sheryl Sanbgerg spent $13,000 on lingerie for herself and a young female assistant during a trip to Europe, and exhorted another one of her subordinates to come to bed during a private jet flight on the way home, according to an explosive new memoir. This was her assistant, who said she was often forced into risque work trips, and Sanbgerg would be stroking her head. And what's really funny is Sanbgerg is this lean-in feminist. What would she say about a male CEO stroking the heads of their female subordinates? So this tweet probably won the internet on this whole video controversy. Sam Adler Bell, who, this is very brave, he's a writer for New York Magazine and the New York Times. Can we just be honest about this for a fucking second? The current government of the U.S. is using the protection of Jews to disappear people from our streets for their political speech on your behalf. You got what you wanted. They're the Nazis. You're a collaborator. Oof. Oof. Now, our friend Blakely did a little video about this. We'll take a look at some of that.
You have to be so fucking deranged. The gaslighting and the delusion is so next level, and the victim complex is so next level. I can't believe that not like a single producer was like, hey, just on the optics, as all these Palestinians are getting murdered and Arab students are getting snatched off the street in the United States of America for speaking out about Palestine. Maybe wait on this. It's actually crazy watching this. Like, you feel like you're losing your mind. Like, bro, you're talking about Instagram posts making you feel uncomfortable and you're calling that violence, acting like you need to be scared as Americans are having their civil liberties rolled back on behalf of the Zionist agenda. What the fuck are you talking about, woman? By the way, this is in service of a Delulu propaganda film that the likes of her and Deborah Messing and all the other Zionist hack suspects you would think. And they're like bragging about it like being on Rotten Tomatoes, like as if anyone's interested in any of that shit.
Yeah. Now, I forget his name again. Jake very kindly texted it to me the other day. The Yale professor says he's leaving the country. He did this interview with PBS that's making the rounds. And he said exactly what we've been saying.
Jason Stanley, that's his name.
Jason Stanley. He said exactly what we've been saying. This plays into a lot of anti-Semitic tropes. And in the end, it's not good for Jews to be used as a sledgehammer to dismantle civil liberties, because these kids who are in college now, what do you think they're going to say later about what happened when they tried to speak out about this one particular country? And Sanbgerg is a prime example of that. This is not helping the Jewish community. He actually said in that interview, and I've said this many times too, I definitely feel more fear of an anti-Semitic backlash than I have ever felt in my life because of the Zionists. The Zionists are what is putting the Jewish people around the world in danger. The idea that Israel is protecting the Jews, rather, they don't want to protect the Jews. They want, you've made this point many times, they want us all to feel like We have to go take refuge in Israel. They want to create anti-Semitism so the Jews won't feel comfortable anyplace.
Right, right. The more afraid Jews are around the world, the more of them will flock to Israel, the more land they're going to need. So the more justified they're going to be in going and raising Palestinian villages in the West Bank and turning Gaza into a Trump-themed resort casino paradise, right? I mean, it all fits their narrative very well. It is in Israel's interest to foment anti-Semitism around the world. And that's exactly what this is going to do. And to Blakely's point, and to the journalist who you put up on the tweet there, I don't recall his name. He says, the government is backing you to the hilt. We have the most explicitly, emphatically, fanatical pro-Zionist government we've ever had. And that is saying a lot because Israel always has an ally in the White House.
Right.
The most tension there's been in recent memory between, Israel and the White House has been during the Obama years, and it was really just a matter of personal dislike. It was clear they didn't like each other, but, I mean, Obama was not a foe of Israel in any meaningful way. Nobody ever is. Nobody ever is. So what the hell are you what are you talking about? You have the biggest police state in the world, the United States government, on your side, enforcing your side of the argument. Yeah. So what do you mean you're going to have to hide me? It is completely paranoid and insane. And the second point is regarding the strong possibility, and it's not just a possibility, we're already seeing, unfortunately, as a broader anti-Semitic backlash to all this. Part of that is because I think the real underlying reason for United States fealty to Israel is not because they're Jewish, but because they are a Western satellite in the Eastern world. So this really, it reflects on America. It's about the West. It's not about the Jews. It's about the West. As the more you look at this and you watch a film like No Other Land, you really see the West as an illegitimate entity, an illegitimate political entity, because that's what we are. And that is a little too much to deal with for most people who live in America and who live in the West. The Jews are a small minority, so it's a lot easier for a lot of people to process emotionally and psychologically to say, well, this must be about a secret cabal of Jews that runs things. No, this is about the military-industrial complex. This is about the United States maintaining its place as the global hegemon. And we have, in the Middle East, as RFK said plainly into a microphone, an aircraft carrier. And that's what they are. They are doing our bidding, not as a small group of Jews, but they're doing our bidding as the global superpower. So Israel is a stand-in for America, for the West, for the military-industrial complex, for the global police state, not just the American police state. That's why, not to bring this up again, although we're not going to pay a price for it, it was fun, when guys like Alex Jones, who claim to be so red-pilled, but then say, well, I don't really focus on Israel too much because I don't think it's that important. Clown. Yeah. Israel is everything. It's everything in one. It's a lot simpler to just scapegoat Jews for it. But really, this is about us. This is about the West, big picture. And you're seeing just the outright evil that undergirds our place in the world.
Yes. And it was that way from the beginning. It was Christians who first came up with the idea of returning Jews to Israel. It was British Christians. It was aristocrats like Lord Palmerston, because they were anti-Semitic, and they also felt that they could use the Jews exactly the way they're being used. It'll be a satellite for the British Empire, and we get the Jews out of England. It's a win-win. It's a win for everybody. That was the first serious discussion around returning Jews to that region. And for most of the history of Zionism, most Jews considered it a completely crackpot idea. It wasn't until after the Holocaust that you had majority Jewish support for returning there. But yes, it does feed those tropes. And if you dig a little deeper, no, I mean, the tail's not wagging the dog. The dog likes having the tail there. They
Right.
have an ally with absolutely no principles whatsoever, with no morals whatsoever, that will do anything we want them to do. Launch war against anyone, kill anybody, take any territory, never vote against us in the UN on anything. Always just vote with the United States right down the line. We are not serving their interests, they're serving ours, and those interests are horrific.
Yes, exactly. That's what it comes down to. That's what it comes down to. And that is a difficult truth for a lot of people to stare down. And that's where a lot of the broader anti-Semitic backlash comes into things. And that is only fueled by just absolute lunatics like Sandberg going out there saying, you know, I told my friend, will you hide me? And can we show that once again? I just want to hear her reaction of how her friend reacted. That's the most interesting part of this to me. Oops, sorry.
His friends who's
I
not Jewish. And just out of nowhere, not expecting to say this, what came out of my mouth was, will you hide me?
And what did
like,
she say?
If it comes to that, will you hide me and my family? And like, do I really think that's going to happen in the United States? No. And it was interesting because she didn't really know what I was talking about. She, what do you mean hide you? And I explained.
I think she knows. I think she knows that Jews were hidden. I think she didn't know what you were talking about because what you're saying is insane in this context. I think that's why she was taken aback by it. Not because she's ignorant of the history of the Holocaust. Wow. I mean, you gotta be. Wow.
Well, and also, what's the professor's name again?
Stanley.
Yeah, he's exactly right. They are using the ultimate woke technique. We're going to cover that Thursday. I mean, you had a rabbi explicitly make the Ibram X. Kendi argument that it's not enough to be against anti-Semitism. You have to be anti-Semitism. Right. That is the anti-racism book. That's Ibram X. Kendi's whole formulation. Just like the Democrats or the liberals generally hide behind identity groups in order to put a noble face on their agenda, they need the Jews. They need Israel to push through this dismantling of civil liberties. It's not about protecting Jews. It's a pretext. It's a great pretext to do everything they want to do, and they can hide behind this country that will just invoke this specter of discrimination anytime you try to argue against it. You're an anti-Semite. It's the ultimate woke agenda being pushed to the hilt by people who claim to be against that kind of thinking explicitly. I mean, it's a big part of what they ran on.
Yeah. Yeah. And if you look at the cast list of that movie, Deborah Messing, Michael Rappaport, even Barry Weiss, these are all former libs who were driven into the far right after October 7th because of their Zionism. Messing, I think, was one of the libs who deleted her X account because now she restarted it, I guess, to promote the movie she made with De Niro and now this one. So she's only got like 1,000 followers. So she must have deleted it. She must have had a lib meltdown. And, I'm out of here. I'm at Blue Sky. And now she comes back to, because when she has the movie to sell, that's what they all do.
We are dozens.
Yeah, right, exactly. They all come back. Yeah, exactly. All right. Fun Bad say if things gets bad, maybe forced move to Canada. There you go, Fun Bad.
I mean, they've got censorship going on there too.
Yeah,
with the Palestine protesters.
Yep. Yeah, that Yves Engler. They bagged him. Yep. Yeah, it's a very scary time. Steve McNelly, thanks for the $20. Appreciate that. In Australia, if an accident only involves a minor property damage like this one reportedly, even with a school bus, we don't need to report to the cops. And I doubt that speed. Yeah, interesting. Okay. I mean, that is consistent with what Russ said about Australians being rough and tumble types there. But, I mean, if a school bus was going 70 miles an hour, there would have been much more than minor property damage. I mean, school buses are built like fucking tanks. And if it going 70 miles an hour, yeah. So maybe the details about the speed were wrong. Or maybe if there was no police report that day, maybe they're just remembering it. So maybe they don't know how fast it was going.
Honestly, this was one of the strangest things about the Australian reaction to COVID, because it is such a rough and tumble country. You wouldn't expect them to have been as draconian as about lockdowns as they were. That's what's weird about Australia. In the end, they're British.
Right.
Like that's a very British kind of, yes, well, the government has to come in and take everyone in hand and take charge. But these are people who are like, oh yeah, there's a great white out there, but he doesn't bother anybody. I'm going in the water. You can do what you like.
Yeah.
But they locked everyone down during COVID to an extreme that was beyond most Western countries. It was very surprising. It was very strange.
Yeah.
Of all people, you would think they would have just let it rip.
Whatever.
Yeah. Right.
John
Not
Michael.
more dangerous than the spiders I get in my shower every morning.
Exactly. Yeah. John Michael, thanks for the $5. Being of German descent, can I call out hate crimes when I see anti-German World War II movie? There you go. Yes. Sammy, LOL, hide in your private jet, Sheryl. Yes, thank you, Sammy. AOB, thanks for the $9.99. What does Zionists like Sanbgerg need to be hidden from? Genocide prosecution? Oh, boom. Thank you, AOB. Appreciate that.
Well done.
John M. James Lee made a short YouTube positing that Ashley was part of a honeypot op, noting the timing of Elon's conversion from pro-Palestine to kissing Bibi's ass. He did connect a few dots. When was he pro-Palestine? I know he got in trouble with the Jews for a bit, but I didn't think he was ever pro-Palestine.
Yeah, he was never really pro-Palestine. He was anti-Jew.
Right.
There is a difference.
There is a difference, yes. Brother Nishis, hey Russ, on Sunday, you listed some great classic metal bands, but metal has evolved so much, I'd like to recommend you some modern amazing metal if you're interested.
Yeah, man. It's look, where I grew up, everybody listened to metal. And, I mean, this is the truth. I found most of it repetitive. Some of it I thought was great. And the stuff I thought was great, I still listen to. Like particularly Iron Maiden. That was I thought the most inventive and musically interesting of those bands. Back then it's like, yeah, there was this focus on musical virtuosity that's gone now. Like it was the last pop music where people were really interested in how good the guitarist was and how good the drummer was. Like nobody talks about that anymore. So yeah, I mean a typical heavy metal song, you'd have the guitarist solo and it was how fast does he play and that kind of shit. And it got very repetitive even when there was a lot of virtuosity to the execution, as there had to be with the Bon Jovi kind of shit. We call that toy metal. We didn't take it seriously. Def Leppard and that kind of thing. But like the real metal bands had, these virtuoso musicians. But even so, the form had a lot of limitations in its musical structure. Now, has it evolved beyond that? I mean, I'm sure it has. It's been a long time since that was like a popular form. Like at this point, it would be like underground. But yeah, do dissidents at Gmail. You can send some recommendations.
There you go. All right, folks. Hey, while we're paused, we are going to plug our supporters. That's right. So we did have Film Club last night. We did a presentation on No Other Land. That is still up. That'll be up for the next couple days. So if you would like to join and give that a watch on the replay, please, you can go and do so by going to patreon.com/DoDissidents and becoming a member. You can also go to DoDissidents.substack.com, or you can join our locals at DoDissidents.locals.com. You can join for $5 a month or $50 annually, which saves a little bit of money in the long run. But you guys are the backbone of the show. So everybody who signs up gets their name up in lights here on the show credits. You also get call-in access to all of our post-show Q&As every Sunday night. You get bonus live streams, 2 per month, one for the Film Club and one for the just regular content and call-in live stream. You also get live stream access to our full-length pre-recorded interviews as they happen. And, of course, one new feature that people are loving, people are saying great things about, you get an ad-free full replay of every live stream the day after it streams. So if you don't want to sit through the Rumble ads or the YouTube ads, you can sign up for $5 a month, and we email you a link to a full ad-free replay of the stream. So if you miss a show or you miss half a show and you want the ad-free experience, just like watching a raw video file, that is one other perk of membership. So that's quite a few perks for only $5 a month, and it comes, of course, with the good karma of supporting independent media and helping us censor-proof our operation. We also intend to expand our on-the-ground reporting, and we need, of course, some resources to do that. The membership goes a long way towards funding that. So dudissidents.locals.com all helps support the show. We could not do it without our members. So thank you very much, everybody.
From God.
Yes, for your support. Appreciate that very much. Okay. Let's take another couple of super chats here. Racer Car 789. Thanks for the $20. Appreciate that very much. And we'll do one more Rumble rant before we continue on with the show. Luigi Vaccine Pew Pew idea for end of the year awards, special Elon awards, all being ones he receives this year, like Father of the Year. Yeah, biggest stock sob story, most fraudulent government cuts, etc. There you go. I'm sure he'll win a lot this year. Although the year is young, pardon me. A little lump in the throat there. All right, folks, we're going to move right along. This is really a despicable story. This just, came to our attention early this morning, but I'm glad it did, because this is really an outrageous story. An administrative error sends a Maryland father to a Salvadoran prison. The Trump administration says it mistakenly deported an immigrant with protected status, but that courts are powerless to order his return. So the Salvadoran prison in the headline is, of course, CECOT, brutal, basically Guantanamo Bay-like conditions in El Salvador, who their government, of course, being paid $20,000 a head per year to house quote-unquote gang members. In theory, that's everybody who's down there, but we've already seen multiple instances of people who are not gang members, in fact, legal migrants who are not gang members, get swept up and sent down to what the New York Post itself describes as a hellhole prison. So the Atlantic reports the Trump administration acknowledged in a court filing Monday that it had grabbed a Maryland father with protected legal status and mistakenly deported him to El Salvador, but said that U.S. courts lack jurisdiction to order his return from the mega prison where he's now locked up. The case appears to be the first time the Trump administration has admitted to errors when it sent 3 plane loads of Salvadoran and Venezuelan deportees to El Salvador's grim terrorism confinement center on March 15th. Attorneys for several Venezuelan deportees have said that the Trump administration falsely labeled their clients as gang members because of their tattoos. Trump officials have disputed those claims. But in Monday's court filing, attorneys for the government admitted that the Salvadoran man, Kilmar Abrego Garcia, was deported accidentally. Although ICE was aware of his protection from removal to El Salvador, Abrego Garcia was removed to El Salvador because of an administrative error, the government told the court. Trump lawyers said the court has no ability to bring him back now that Abrego Garcia is in Salvadoran custody. Simone Sandoval-Maschenberg, Abrego Garcia's attorney, said he's never seen a case in which the government knowingly deported someone who had already received protected legal status from an immigration judge. He is asking the court to order the Trump administration to ask for Abrego Garcia's return and, if necessary, to withhold payment to the Salvadoran government, which says it's charging the United States $6 million a year to jail U.S. deportees. Trump administration attorneys told the court to dismiss the request on multiple grounds, including that Trump's primacy in foreign affairs outweighs the interests of Abrego Garcia and his family. Okay, so we're going to stop there. We have a lot more. But this is where, when you start making claims about terrorism and national security priorities or foreign policy imperatives, that makes it much easier for the executive branch to claim sole jurisdiction over these matters, because they could say, where I'm the commander in chief, I preside over the national security state. It is my job to keep America safe. Therefore, I am afforded great discretion as to who stays in America and who gets deported to what is essentially a Guantanamo Bay type facility in El Salvador. Worse, it looks like. Yeah. And so that is the danger of this. That's been the danger of this all along. And we said, as soon as this started, this is going to get worse and worse and worse. And it didn't even take 100 days. Did not even take 100 days. Go ahead. You have anything while we're stopped?
Yeah. The idea that this will not be turned on Americans is naive. The Patriot Act opens that door. If you're going to start to get very loose with how you define national security and terrorism in one area, you're going to do it in other areas. Look how fast they went from we're just going after criminals to grabbing green card holders, legal people, married to American citizens, shaking down tourists at the border and locking them up in ICE detention for 2 weeks, torturing them. You think they're not going to test the waters of arresting student leaders who are American? They're already, according to the psychos at Betar, they tweeted this out. They claim it's already in the works to start to denaturalize naturalized citizens who have been part of protests.
Wouldn't surprise me at all. Not in the least, especially when you consider the speed at which this is happening. They claim that the court is powerless to order any relief, Sandoval Moschenberg told me, who, once again, that is the lawyer to the person who has been wrongfully deported. If that's true, the immigration laws are meaningless, all of them, because the government can deport whoever they want, wherever they want, whenever they want, and no court can do anything about it once it's done. Court filings show Abrego Garcia came to the United States at age 16 in 2011 after fleeing gang threats in his native El Salvador. In 2019, he received a form of protected legal status known as withholding of removal from a U.S. immigration judge who found he would likely be targeted by gangs if deported back. So once again, you hear in story after story after story, people coming to America because they have legitimate fear for their safety in their country of origin, whether they're being persecuted by the government, whether they're being hunted down by gangs, or whether they're starving because the country's been sanctioned, right? Example after example. In no example, what story have you read where a migrant just shows up here because, I heard New York City is fun, so I wanted to live there instead of Honduras? Anyone?
Are they still playing Cats?
Yeah, right. Yeah, is Cats still playing? Did I make it in time? Yes. Abrego Garcia, who is married to a U.S. citizen and has a 5-year-old disabled child who is also a U.S. citizen, has no criminal record in the United States, according to his attorney. The Trump administration does not claim he has a criminal record, but called him a, quote, danger to the community and an active member of MS-13, the Salvadoran gang that Trump has declared, once again, a foreign terrorist organization. Sandoval Moschenberg said those charges are false, and the gang label stems from a 2019 incident when Abrego Garcia and 3 other men were detained in a Home Depot parking lot by a police detective in Prince George's County, Maryland. During questioning, one of the men told officers Abrego Garcia was a gang member, but the man offered no proof, and police said they didn't believe him, filings show. Police did not identify him as a gang member. Abrego Garcia was not charged with a crime, but he was handed over to U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement after the arrest to face deportation. In those proceedings, the government claimed that a reliable informant had identified him as a ranking member of MS-13. Abrego Garcia and his family hired an attorney and fought the government's attempt to deport him. He received withholding of removal 6 months later, a protected status. So they scooped a few guys up at a Home Depot site. When people are scooped up like that, they have incentive to chirp about the other guys, right? Because if they cooperate and they inform and they rat on someone else, then they figure they might get a good deal. That seems to be what happened here. The tattoos on these MS-13 guys are pretty obvious. They say MS-13 on them, right? It's pretty obvious to identify an MS-13 tattoo. So anyway, he gets arrested. One of the guys he's arrested with says he's a gang member. The cops can't find any evidence to support that claim. They write that in their report that they do not believe he is a gang member. He's threatened with deportation, but ultimately granted a stay. So that brings us up more or less to date. Abrego Garcia has had no contact with any law enforcement agency since his release, according to his attorney. He works full-time as a union sheet metal apprentice, has complied with requirements to check in annually with ICE, and cares for his 5-year-old son who has autism and a hearing defect and is unable to communicate verbally. This is the part that's really infuriating. The guy has a nonverbal autistic son who was with him when they swept him up. On March 12th, Abrego Garcia had picked up his son after work from the boy's grandmother's house when ICE officers stopped the car, saying his protected status had changed. Officers waited for Abrego Garcia's wife to come to the scene and take care of the boy, then drove him away in handcuffs. Within 2 days, he had been transferred to an ICE staging facility in Texas, along with other detainees the government was preparing to send to El Salvador. Trump had invoked the Alien Enemies Act of 1798, and the government planned to deport 2 plane loads of Venezuelans, along with a separate group of Salvadorans. Imagine the terror in that poor kid's heart. A nonverbal autistic kid seeing these guys, these goons, come and sweep his dad away randomly for no reason, as it turns out. Abrego Garcia's family has had no contact with him since he was sent to the mega prison in El Salvador, known as the CECOT. His wife spotted her husband in news photographs released by Salvadoran President Nayib Bukele on the morning of March 16th, after a U.S. district judge had told the Trump administration to halt the flights. Oopsie, Bukele wrote on social media, taunting the judge. Yes, we covered this in the past. Remember, oopsie, too late. Meaning, sorry, they're mine. Cha-ching, money's in the bank. If the government wants to deport someone with protected status, the standard course would be to reopen the case and introduce new evidence arguing for deportation. The deportation of a protected status holder has even stunned some government attorneys I've been in touch with, meaning the author of the piece, who are tracking the case, who declined to be named because they weren't authorized to speak to the press. What the fuck? One texted me. Sandoval Moshenberg told the court he believes Trump officials deported his client through extrajudicial means because they believed that going through the immigration judge process took too long, and they feared that they might not win all of their cases. Now, think of that. Think of that.
Yep.
They figure, well, if we take this to court, we might lose, whereas if we ship him off, then technically there's nothing we could do about it at that point because he's in El Salvador's jurisdiction at that point. Officials at ICE and the Department of Homeland Security did not respond to a request for comment. The Monday court filing by the government indicates officials knew Abrego Garcia had legal protection shielding him from deportation to El Salvador. The flight manifest did not indicate that Abrego Garcia should not be removed, the attorney said. Through administrative error, Abrego Garcia was removed from the United States to El Salvador. This was an oversight. But despite this, they told the court that Abrego Garcia's deportation was carried out in good faith. In good faith. Can you believe that? Okay, so John Favreau, friend of show, John Favreau,
Loves us.
Yeah, he loves us, yeah. Went kind of viral here. This post got 6.8 million views, largely because J.D. Vance, in his wisdom, responded to it. So Favreau says, any comment on this, Marco Rubio? How about you, J.D. Vance or Elon Musk? You just admitted to accidentally sending an innocent father from Maryland to a torture dungeon in El Salvador, and you refuse to do anything about it. So J.D. Vance actually quote tweets him and says, "My comment is that according to the court document you apparently didn't read, he was a convicted MS-13 gang member with no legal right to be here. My further comment is that it's gross to get fired up about gang members getting deported while ignoring citizens they victimize."
And my third comment is that it's come to my attention that our entire political base is made up of regarded people who won't look any more deeply than my reply.
Exactly. Right. Right. Our base is just people for whom that is, oh, J.D. Vance lights up.
He was a convicted gang member. These liberals, they want to protect the gang members.
Yeah, exactly. That's his base at the moment. So Zed Jelani replies to J.D. Vance and says, why did the administration itself admit the deportation was an error if now the new line is to defend it? With an error itself, the guy was not convicted of a crime and was not a known gang member, of course. So Billy Binion quote tweets J.D. Vance and says, this is literally fake news. J.D. Vance didn't read the court documents. Here's what they actually say. Abrego Garcia is not a convicted gang member. He's never been charged or convicted of any crime. Police accused him of being MS-13 after stopping him and 3 other men for allegedly loitering outside a Home Depot where he says he'd gone to apply for a job. It was his first his first and only time in state custody. Law enforcement separated the men and interrogated them about gang membership. They told Abrego Garcia he could leave if he gave them information, which he said he didn't have. One of the other men pointed the finger at Abrego Garcia and accused him of being affiliated with part of a gang that operates in New York where he's never lived. That, along with the fact that he was wearing a Chicago Bulls hat and hoodie, is the evidence law enforcement said showed he was in a gang. When his lawyer went off to find the police report for the Home Depot incident, Abrego Garcia wasn't even named on it. And what about the subsequent gang evaluation? The investigator who authored it was suspended. In late 2019, Abrego Garcia won his case, was granted protected status, and was released from custody. He has had no arrests since. Those are the facts. Now, Robert Chapman Smith describes this in a little more detail, which I think is important. The publicly available evidence that Kilmar Abrego Garcia was or is a member of MS-13 seems rather thin. The 2019 bond memoriam that the government cites as proof of... memorandum, pardon me. That the government cites as proof of his MS-13 status relies on 2 pieces of evidence from an I-213, which is a record of deportable/inadmissible alien, from ICE, and a GFIS, the gang field interview sheet, from the Prince George County Police Department. I could not find either document online, but according to Kilmar's attorneys, the only evidence provided in the PGBT GFIS is that Kilmar was wearing a Bulls hat and hoodie, and that an informant, a confidential informant, claimed that Kilmar was a member of an MS-13 clique based 200 miles from Kilmar's home in a state he'd never lived in. If you read the 2019 bond memorandum, the document admits that the I-213 form might have erroneous information that conflicts with the GFIS, and it refuses to give evidentiary weight to Kilmar's attire as proof of his MS-13 status. So it seems like the crux of the claim depends on the confidential informant that the memorandum cites as a past proven and reliable source of information. Given the claims being levied, it seems like both the GFIS and the I-213 form related to Kilmar's case should be publicly released. Hopefully the Atlantic has already submitted a FOIA request for these documents. So he cites the pages of the report that the lawyer apparently put out. The GFIS explained that the only reason to believe plaintiff Alberto Garcia was a gang member was that he was wearing a Bulls hat and a hoodie. What's that?
Abrego,
sorry. And that a confidential informant advised he was an active member of MS-13. And, of course, you have here the claims that the gang was based in New York, just citing some evidence. Now, this is what J.D. Vance tries to cite, okay? After considering the information provided by both parties, the court concluded that no bond was appropriate in this matter. The court first reasoned that the respondent failed to meet his burden of demonstrating that his release from custody would not pose a danger to others, as the evidence shows that he's a verified member of MS-13. I won't read all that legal speak, but I will go down to, let's see, where's the one there here? Oh, that's on the next page. All right, the BIA has held that absent any information, that the information therein is incorrect or was the result of coercion or duress from I-213 is inherently trustworthy and admissible. Here it is. The respondent contends that Form I-213 in his case erroneously states he was detained in connection to a murder investigation. He also claims that the I-213 states that he was detained, the I-213 is internally contradicts itself as to whether the respondent fears returning to El Salvador. The reasons for the respondent's arrest, given on his Form I-213, does not appear at odds with the Gangfield interview sheet, which states that the respondent was approached because he and others were loitering outside of a Home Depot. I'm sorry, it does appear at odds. Pardon me, this font is very small, sorry. Regardless, the determination that the respondent is a gang member appears to be trustworthy and is supported by other evidence in the record, namely information contained in the Gangfield interview sheet. Although the court is reluctant to give evidentiary weight to respondent's clothing as indication of gang affiliation, the fact that a, quote, past proven and reliable source of information verified the respondent's gang membership, rank, and gang name is sufficient to support that the respondent is a gang member, and the respondent has failed to present evidence to rebut that assertion. Pardon me, that was too small. I should have enlarged that font. So Kyle Cheney replies, Vance here, mocking John Favreau for not reading the court filing, says the deported man was a convicted gang member. The court filing does not say that. It says he was denied bond in 2019 over an informant's claim that he was in MS-13. That's not a conviction. So J.D. Vance replies, Kyle Cheney, a legal affairs reporter, is apparently unable or unwilling to look at the facts here. In 2019, an immigration judge under the first Trump administration determined that the deported man was, in fact, a member of the MS-13 gang. He also apparently had multiple traffic violations for which he failed to appear in court. A real winner. Again, doesn't matter whether he's a real winner or not. That's besides the point. Yeah. It is telling that the entire American media is going to run a propaganda operation today, making you think an innocent father of three was apprehended by a gulag. Here are the relevant facts. 1, the man is an illegal immigrant with no right to be in our country. 2, an immigration judge determined he was a member of the MS-13 gang. 3, because he is not a citizen, he does not get a full jury trial by peers. In other words, whatever due process he was entitled to, he received. Notice,
I meant to do that.
Yeah, exactly. Notice that was the edited version of that tweet, because in the first version of that tweet, J.D. Vance put in 2019, an immigration judge under the Biden administration determined that the deported man was in fact a member of the MS-13 gang. Of course, Joe Biden was not the president in 2019. And it wasn't just a slip up. He was clearly using this to make a point that even the liberals wanted him gone, because he says in point number 2 in this now edited version of the tweet, an immigration judge during the Biden administration determined he was a member of the MS-13 gang. Timothy Bellman points out correctly that he fought the claims that he was in a gang and beat them. He had legal status in this country, and this administration went ahead and ruined the man's life anyway. Every person in America gets due process. If you don't like it, you hate America. Yeah, amen. So the reason I attempted to read, at least, this is because this is what J.D. Vance cited. But of course, ultimately, the man was not, in fact, deported, because there was not sufficient evidence tying him to MS-13, nowhere close to sufficient evidence tying him to MS-13.
I mean, if we're going to go by this standard, initially, a court ruled that the Trump administration had to rehire the board members of the NLRB. So do we just pull that out and rehire them, even though a later court said, no, actually, they don't?
Right, exactly. But to your point, when J.D. Vance tweets something, he depends on his followers and his base not looking into it. So he cites this as if this is current, complete, and accurate information, when in fact, as the civilian here points out, he fought those claims and won, which is why he was in America as a protected status migrant. And that guy is now stripped from his nonverbal autistic son and shipped off to hell. For what? For what? Ultimately, what it comes down to is their claim that these people do not have a right there. Here it is. The man is an illegal immigrant with no right to be in our country. That's all they care about. That is all they care about. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter how many times they fuck up or how many times it's proven to them that they fuck up, to try and appeal to any sense of morality. Like, what about the guy's disabled 5-year-old son? Doesn't matter. He's illegal. He has to go. Even though in this particular case, the guy was given protected status. The guy checked in with ICE regularly since the arrest at the Home Depot in 2019. He hasn't disappeared. He hasn't gone on a run. He's doing what he has to do. And it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. And it's such a disgusting, despicable story. And it's so indicative of what was very obvious would happen. It's happening a little faster than I thought. I thought they would try and soft pedal it a little bit. I thought this would maybe start happening 6 months in. No. 3 months in, you start seeing shit like this because they're moving at such breakneck speed. They don't care what mistakes they make. When they make a mistake, they send Vance out to tweet out about this. That tweet got 7.9 million views, his response to the Jon Favreau tweet. How many of those 7.9 million views do you think are checked with actual, relevant, important information about the case, or even the Atlantic article itself? How many people you think actually click on the article itself and look into it, which makes it plainly obvious that this was an unjustified act and really a criminal act against an innocent person? It does not matter. It does not matter. Even after the administration admits it's a mistake, Vance comes out and says, he was a gang member. And even if he wasn't a gang member, he's here illegally. He shouldn't be here anyway. And he's not a citizen, so he doesn't really deserve the same due process as American citizens are. Whatever process he was entitled, he got. Now he's gone. Fuck it. Next case. Move on. That's clearly their attitude, with total indifference at best, contempt at worst, for anybody who gets swept up in this at all.
Yeah, they're also sending these people to El Salvador to get around cruel and unusual punishment, because anyone who's seen those pictures, that is clearly cruel and unusual punishment. At that point, who are we as a people? If you're cheering, it doesn't matter where they're from. We as a people, and I would argue our prison system is inherently a violation of the cruel and unusual punishment standard as it is. But not to that extent. Not to that extent where you're penning people on with not enough room, where they have to be squeezed in together to fit them all into the cell. If you're supporting that, you're not a real American. Those are the people who like to throw around, you're not a real American, motherfucker. If you look at that and that's something you want to support, say they broke the law. Say that's all true. We are supposed to stand against cruel and unusual punishment. And no reasonable person would argue that's not cruel and unusual punishment. That on the just even on that level, even if they were right to deport this person, then you have clearly these people are just going to lie about whether they should deport people. There is just this arbitrary Kafkaesque exercise of power now. This is what happens when you have an executive that is going to ignore the judiciary. And anyone who thinks that is not a danger to every single person living in this country is not thinking it through. If the executive refuses to adhere to any checks, what's to stop the government from destroying anybody? That's why we have checks. Yes, The judges, the courts that Elon, who I'm sure you think he's so brilliant, I'm sure he knows that the system is set up to give courts authority to make rulings. He keeps going on X because, again, just like J.D. Vance, he knows the people who take them seriously, who don't realize they're a bunch of psychopathic criminals, are not from the smart side of town. They can pretty much say whatever. It's like elections don't matter. It's like these unelected judges have the power to limit the presidency. Yes. Yes, exactly. That is the Constitution. That is the system of checks and balances. Yes, that's exactly how it is. And again, the Republicans were never shy about suing the Biden administration or the Obama administration over how many times did they sue over Obamacare to shut down Obamacare? Yes, that is. I never heard all these people saying judges shouldn't have that power. Obama's the president. He has the power to make those decisions. Why should this go to court? It's so dangerous that, yes, you are seeing people like that professor's name I can never remember, leaving the country, man. Leaving the country. You're going to see a lot of people leaving the country. And if you're saying, well, good, get rid of them. Hey, man, it's not just going to be maybe people you don't really need who are more in the cultural, social sciences. You're going to see physicists leaving. You're going to see people in the medical field leaving. You're going to see the actual brightest people in the country leaving. And you're certainly not going to see people coming. There are consequences for this that, in this moment where this hasn't all played out, people who are getting off on it because somebody of lower status than them is getting beaten up on, and they've given up on getting any other satisfaction out of life than that. This is going to come back on all of us.
Yep. And that is, I'm glad you mentioned that, because that remains the driving political instinct behind all of this at the grassroots level. Where you see support from this, it is from people who, yes, I believe, know that their lives are spiraling downward, and that the only gratification that is attainable to them is to revel in the suffering of somebody else. How does this improve anyone's quality of life? Where is the messaging from this administration about inflation, about home ownership, even about jobs? Haven't heard anything about jobs coming from these guys. Nothing.
Right.
Nothing. It's all just grabbing people off the street who they don't like and making their lives miserable. And at a certain point, that becomes the payoff. That becomes not the means to an end, which I think is perverse in and of itself, but that becomes literally the end. That is literally the goal, right? It is it is just a theater of pain. And, if that's the America you want to live in, well, then that says a lot more about you than it says about everybody else, I would say. The fact that this is a desirable environment to live in. That's why tourism is down. Nobody wants to come. Nobody wants to be in a place
is
like this.
Completely collapsing.
Right.
It's completely collapsing.
Right.
If you look at the comments on the video clip we just dropped, got all these people from around the world commenting like, yeah, I used to go there. I would never go there again.
Yeah. No, unless you are a paranoid lunatic who thinks that, you're going to get jumped by a gang of illegal immigrants every time you leave your house, or just an unabashed racist, which we've seen some of in the comments as well, then, yeah, this is not a desirable place to live unless you fit one of those two categories. And, the question remains, do most people in America not fit one of those two categories? We shall see. We shall see, because there's a lot of paranoia out there now. But I suspect that the country is actually bigger than that, as evidenced by some of the backlash to this that you're starting to see.
We got an election today.
We got an election today.
Couple.
That's right.
A couple.
That's right. A couple of them. So we'll have more to say about this later in the week. Gavin Hillick, thanks for the €5. A little loyal Jewish Ulster in a sea of potentially hostile Arabism is what Churchill called Israel. Ulster or oyster? It's Britain's last settler colony, indeed. John Michael, the same stories are in Christianity, stoning of Stephen, the execution of James, etc. But Christians celebrate the suffering, not wallow in it. Thank you. AGP, the psychological disorders, that can come out of a people who are taught that Goyim want to kill you and will kill you if they learn of Zionist and or Talmud makes for a schizo condition. Dwayne Vogel says, hey, Russ, what do you think of Tool?
Not for me.
Not for me? I like a little Tool. I think they're good. I actually like A Perfect Circle better than Tool, though. The first album anyway. Nas M, thanks for the $5. I can't believe you haven't heard of Mossad, the son of Hamas. Oh, the son of Hamas guy. Yeah, he was he's the Mossad guy, right?
Oh, now I know who.
Who that is. Yeah, wow, what a cast that is. Wow, he really is the cherry on top of that Sunday.
Well, so I was right. He is an Uncle Habib.
Yeah, he is an uncle. Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I assumed if he's appearing in that movie credited.
Right.
He must be. What else would he be?
Right. He was on Piers Morgan and Abby, and it was hilarious. What a psychopath. Check it out. All right, I will. Thank you for that. Michael Zemrowski, up until a few months ago, Elon was an electric Jesus. Now he's Satan's firstborn. Thank you for that very much. All right, let's go to some Rumble rants. Will the clean break strategy and late stage capitalism collide, and will Russia and China step in? This might be the tipping point. Could very well be. I mean, I think in some ways, you look back at history, I think the Ukraine war is going to really go down in history as the beginning of that tip, the beginning of the very, very serious organization of powers against America and the West. But yeah, I do think that is on its way. Noah Goop, Mossad Hassan Youssef is the son of Hamas Palestinian guy, who they tried out to say that Israel should carpet bomb Gaza even more. He's a Mossad agent, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, I think so too. Thank you for that. Sheryl Sanbgerg, not all blank victims are blank survivors. But there you go. Stoop sign, Curb Your Enthusiasm music starts playing when Sheryl Sanbgerg is revealed to be rapey. Yeah, here we go. Did you investigate the Hotel California We Used to Know thing? You can't unhear it. I have not, Furrow Queen. Every waking moments between last night's show and this show has been spent preparing this show. So I have not, but I will. Because I'm interested. I like hearing connections between songs. I always think that's fun. All right. Why don't we move on? All right. So we got a labor story, another American story. Your mic came out. Something's going on. Did you mute it?
I did.
There you go.
I'm here.
Yep, you're there.
Florida, for kids.
Yeah.
So Florida has been arguably the most enthusiastic state about deporting people. I believe they have been number one in deportations. They formed a whole board to deport people as soon as Trump came in. They really doubled down on rounding people up. There's only one problem. Florida, because of its enormous tourism industry, is unusually dependent on boatloads of cheap immigrant labor. So where are you going to get cheap labor if you kick out all these immigrants? Well, our friend Ensure Ron had some ideas about that. He expressed on stage with his fellow criminal there, Tom Homan.
In Florida. And I also look, they said when we did E-Verify, we got big resorts, we got all this. They said, oh, you're not going to be able, to hire people or whatever. And one, that hasn't been the case in Florida. Yes, we had people that left because of those rules. But you've also been able to hire other people. And what's wrong with expecting our young people to be working part-time now? I mean, that's how it used to be when I was growing up. Why do we say we need to import foreigners, even import them illegally, when, teenagers used to work at these resorts? College students should be, all this stuff. It's like you go 30, 40,000 in debt to just take loans, but you're not expected to work at all. So I think the priorities have been jumbled, and I think there's absolutely people that would be able to do. And then even these legal programs, I mean, I'm sorry, these H-1.
Okay, so then he goes on into H-1B visas. But okay, so Ensure Ron is painting this very Norman Rockwell picture of what he has in mind. Kids working part-time, selling the newspapers. But that's already legal. That's already legal. I had a paper route when I was a kid. Do you have a paper route, Keaton?
No, I didn't have a paper route. I worked
I
at
did
Pizza
that.
Hut.
Yeah, no, I delivered the Daily News for a while. So he's making it out that that's what he's talking about. But why would you need to advocate for that? There are already millions of teenagers working part-time jobs all around the country. No, what he's thinking of is something more like this, more along these lines, more along the lines of the third world. You know, our friend Chris Hedges often says what they do over there, they'll eventually do over here, and usually means that in a military context, but it's also true in an economic context. In fact, we used to have the world that Ron DeSantis is so nostalgic for. Looked like this. Before 1938, they passed the Labor Act that set the minimum wage and also set limitations on child labor. But before that, you had kids working in the mines, you had kids working in the factories. So they're trying to bring us back to those halcyon days. Alarm as Florida Republicans move to fill deported workers' jobs, children. With children. So we're going to play a little bit of a CBS report on this.
The Senate bill would remove restrictions on 16 and 17-year-olds, allowing for overnight shifts longer than 8 hours during school days, more than 30 hours during school weeks, and remove mandated meal breaks. It would also lift those restrictions on 14 and 15-year-olds who are homeschooled or attend virtual classes.
This is a parental rights issue, and frankly, we're not talking the jungle by Upton Sinclair. We're talking about them working at Publix, at Piggly Wiggly.
Okay, so that's really beside the point where you're talking about them working. And the only reason they're not talking about that is because federal law does not allow them to work in dangerous conditions. They certainly would if they could, because if you look at what this law is, very much like the minimum wage, the federal minimum wage is $7.25. Very few states don't mandate a higher than federal minimum wage. They're bringing the Florida laws down to the bare minimum of what Florida law requires with children, right up to the line of what they can get away with. So most states don't go to that bare minimum. They're trying to drag Florida down to the bare minimum. And that would allow them to, if you're homeschooled, if you go to school virtually, no rules. You can work a 40-hour week. You could take a 14-year-old, make them work a full-time job if they happen to be homeschooled. Overnight shifts. Why would you put in the bill no requirement for meal breaks for kids?
Right.
I mean, just the level of psychopathic evil. Who's this going to impact? What? You think the children of the rich are going to be working overnight while they're trying to go through high school? It's one more example of trying to roll back whatever gains workers have made over the last century and bring us back to Gilded Age circumstances, right down to child labor. All right, let's watch a little more of this.
Comes as Florida has about 77 available workers for every 100 open jobs, according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics. But at Paradise Farms in Homestead, farm manager Brendan Sutton does not believe easing restrictions on child labor is the answer.
That's what this bill is designed for, to take advantage of poor people for the benefit of rich people.
Do you see a world where a parent who's undocumented doesn't feel that they can freely go out to work, may want to send their child to do it instead?
Yeah, I mean, you're getting to the crux of the matter. Like, we've been promised this mass deportation, and now the business class is wondering, oh, what are we going to do to replace our cheap labor?
Florida Policy Institute's Alexis Tsoukalis is against the bill.
That's really going to be an unfair choice between school and work, when really we should be keeping these guardrails in place so there's a proper balance.
She says 16 other states are also considering rolling back some protections or have already done so as the debate in Florida continues. Manuel.
Okay. So I was told that part of the whole impetus behind MAGA was that we had enough Americans to work these jobs. So if you got rid of all these immigrants, it was going to improve employment rates and it was going to raise wages. So why does Florida have a labor shortage? They have 100 jobs for every 77 people. What happened? I thought the free market was going to take care of that. Where are all these Americans who want to work, who are moving to Florida to take those jobs? Why do they have to resort to child labor? I feel that's not what I voted for, Keaton.
I said this
voted
before
for
the
Jill Stein, but
right. I said this before the election. I said this as far back as we've talked about the immigration issue. And, you know, it's not that there's not a legitimate concern about immigration and wages, but I have promised you every step of the way, they can drag every illegal immigrant out of this country. You are not getting a better deal from these people. Do not think that them dragging immigrants out is going to result in the middle class or the working class getting a raise. They are going to find some other way, if not multiple other ways, to stick it in your ass. Automation, downsizing, supply cutting, or child labor. They have a million cards in the deck that they can pull out, none of which are, let's give a raise to Eddie. That's not going to happen. You're not getting that from this crew. And I've been saying that for years now.
Right. So a little of the Guardian article. Unsurprisingly, the proposal has alarmed immigration advocates and watchdog groups concerned about child labor abuses and exploitation. They point out that there is nothing part-time in the language of the companion Senate. You notice how Ensure Ron wanted to make it out like he's standing up for part-time labor, because what they're actually advocating for is grotesque. So he has to make it like he's advocating for something we already have that nobody is arguing against.
Hey, when I was a kid, I used to bottle Coca-Cola for 10 hours with a 10-minute break.
There was actually a local mafia don who needed his enemies enamored, and that was where I got my start in sticking rubber tubes up people's asses. In the language of the companion Senate and House bills currently before lawmakers, which instead will permit unlimited working hours without breaks for 14 and 15-year-olds who are schooled at home or online, and allow employers to require 16 and 17-year-olds to work for more than 6 days in a row. Quote, it's essentially treating teens who have developing bodies and minds like adults, and this will allow employers to schedule them for unlimited hours overnight and without breaks, and this is during the school year, said Alexis Tsoukalis, senior policy analyst at the Florida Policy Institute, an independent research and economic analysis group. The state was singled out in a 2024 report by Governing for Impact and the Economic Policy Institute that recorded a surge in workplace injuries and violations involving minors, some in the agricultural industry, where hazards include exposure to toxic chemicals and dangerous machinery. The report noted a corresponding push in at least 30 mostly Republican-controlled states to weaken workplace protections for children, and warned the second Trump administration would seek to escalate the rollback. Quote, we've been saying since 2023 that this is a way for them to exploit minors. It was when they passed this large anti-immigrant omnibus, and the same year that they tried to pass the first law gutting child labor protection, said Thomas Kennedy, spokesperson for the Florida Immigrant Coalition. The only short-term answer to workforce shortages has always been net migration, and they'll never go for that because of their politics. So their only answer is to widen the parameters of who can work. And you either go older or you go younger, and they chose to go younger. Kennedy pointed to another Republican bill that progressed this week that would allow employers to pay interns and apprentices less than minimum wage. Quote, to recap, they made the state hostile to immigrants. They deported a bunch of people or scared people into not coming or moving out of the state. they exacerbated worker shortages. So now they're trying to gut child labor protection standards while at the same time passing a law that would allow them to classify these children and other workers as interns, he said. It's insane, right? Now, okay, as Keaton pointed out, we have always been willing to say there are legitimate issues with unrestrained immigration. I have always felt that the purpose of it was to suppress wages and to destabilize the labor market. But that's not really what Republicans care about. They want cheap labor. They want to keep the cost of labor down. What you've been told, apparently, I mean, look at those Florida figures. They got 100 jobs for every 77 people. So that kind of undermines the idea that, well, you know, there are all these jobs that would be taken by Americans if you didn't have these immigrants. So at that point, you've really just got a politics that's built on racism as charged, right? Well, why else would you want to get rid of these people if you can't actually fill the jobs with Americans? It's been sold as that. We'll fill these jobs with Americans. Not only do they clearly, based on the fact that you've got 30 Republican states trying to loosen child labor laws, they know they don't have enough Americans who are actually going to fill these jobs. So what else is it other than to distract the population with racial animus and blaming somebody further down the economic ladder from you for your own problems? As Keaton pointed out, what do you think, they want to give you higher wages?
Right, you think
they don't want to
yeah.
give you higher
Right.
wages. So how do they get around it? All right, now they get rid of these immigrants. They don't want adult American citizens taking these jobs, and then you're going to have universal employment, and they're going to have to start to raise wages to compete for labor. So what do? Well, let's get children. This is what scum these people are. Look, to get the rights, what's left of them that you have today, that was generations of workers who were willing to get their heads cracked by the Pinkertons. That was who were really willing. James, who's come on the show a few times, man, his father used to get hired to get beaten up on the picket line. That was a job to be willing to take the beating from the Pinkertons. That's what it took to get what you have now. And a lot of it's already gone. What remains of it, like child labor laws, that was fought for. Now they are trying to get rid of it. And all of this, these very macho Michael Bay videos of people being shipped to El Salvador, it's just a distraction from their real agenda. I keep saying this, and I think within a year, most people are going to realize this. They're trying to kill you. They are trying to kill you. They have no interest in empowering you. They have no interest in restoring some better way of life, some golden age of American capitalism. They have no interest in that. They are using your support. They're using your votes. They're using your political consent to build a feudal society where a lot of labor can actually be automated. They don't need as many of you. They can rule that system. They'll use Palantir and their Lavender AI system to continue to build out a surveillance state. They'll crush the courts that are the only check on their power in order to be able to arrest anyone who dissents under the premise of them being terrorists or a threat to the government or aligned with terrorist organizations. And if you drop dead from lack of health care or starvation, that's why it's the Scrooge thing. Let them get about the business of dying to cut down the surplus population. That's how they see you. Your surplus population, their own followers, they have nothing but contempt. They want you dead.
Yeah, and well, look, I mean, this is evidenced, I think, in large part by the messaging, which you notice around immigration. And this is another thing I told you was going to happen. All of the messaging around immigration is going to be about crime and safety, right? They're not going to say it's about racism. They're going to say it's about crime and safety. We're getting these people out to keep you safe. That's exactly what they're saying now, insisting everybody who they're removing is a gang member and a violent threat, even though there are multiple instances of people who are no such thing. being sent to these hellhole prisons anyway. That is evidence of what you're talking about. They are not proposing a better deal for the working class or for the middle class even. They're not even proposing that. They're just saying this is a safety issue. We have to rid our streets of these dangerous people. That's how they get people on board with it, because empowering working people is just not what they're interested in. It's plainly not what they want.
Of course not. Why
They're
would they
going to
want
come
to do
up with
that?
every other thing, every reason they can to not do that. And, you know, as you said, it's going to be poor and working class people whose kids have to work the 6 days in a row with limited breaks and blah, blah, blah. And how do they get them to go along with that? You show them somebody else who has it worse and who deserves to have it worse. And then you say, well, yeah, my kid's got to work 6 days in a row so that we can have a life because we're not those freeloading commies on the left, and we're not like those immigrants who come up here asking for a handout. Meanwhile, what happens? Your quality of life degrades and degrades and degrades, and you become more and more attached to it. Attachment to your own suffering. That is a great American value. Megan Day said that when
You're
I
the horse
interviewed
and
her.
animal form.
Yeah, exactly. Very attached to your own suffering. You really define yourself in those terms, and the result is just going one way the wrong way. And they'll come up with every issue they can to distract you from that. That's what a lot of the culture wars are about. That's what this immigration thing is about now. It's just a theater of pain. That's all it is.
Right.
Okay. Let's go on to Eric Suarez. Mexico had a big protest outside the Israeli embassy. I like that last Sunday. They burned effigies of Milikowski and are pushing for the government to cut ties. I did not hear about that. Celeste Holmes, thanks for the $5. Trump regime doesn't want their ES mistakes back to avoid the story from kidnapping to return. Well, that's another thing. Yeah, I mean, if you admit your mistakes and then that becomes a big story, the more cleanup is involved. Luigi, vaccine. Why isn't anyone talking about the Canadian terrorist like Cameron Smith shooting ND and SD power stations, was convicted and sentenced to 25 years? Enough about the CIA's Arab terrorists. I have not even heard about that. But thank you for that. We need like a Canada correspondent. We need a weekly Canada
We
show.
do.
The Canada update. Yeah. Chase the Mind Sculptor. If there is any proof of us living in an Orwellian U.S. nightmare right now, it's government deporting students for wrongthink and immigrants with a couple tattoos. Very scary times are upon us. Absolutely. Yes. 100%. Thank you for that. Let's see. Doc Durkin, a comedy tragedy on Zionist project as parody, e.g. like Producers, makes fun of the Zionists and supporters and includes a future backlash against Jews in the USA, worldwide, all in comedic prose. Hamhawk, thanks for the $5. Lesson, if you came to the USA, you better be a quiet earner. That's right. Indeed. Okay, let's move on here. We got a couple more segments to get to. Nice crowd in here today, 1,800 strong in the YouTube chat, 859 on Rumble, and we are at a healthy 787 likes. Let's smash that like button, everybody. Let's smash that subscribe button. Make sure we're subscribed on YouTube. Make sure we're following over on Rumble. And thanks, everybody, very much, of course, for being in here today. Okay, so we watched the film No Other Land last night. And so, you know, stories like this, of course, hit really hard in any circumstance. But just another just absolutely horrible story. Israel killed 15 Palestinian paramedics and rescue workers one by one, says the UN. Workers on a mission to help colleagues were buried in a mass grave in southern Gaza, says humanitarian office. 15 Palestinian paramedics and rescue workers, including at least one United Nations employee, were killed by Israeli forces one by one and buried in a mass grave 8 days ago in southern Gaza, the UN has said. According to the UN Humanitarian Affairs Office, OCHA, the Palestinian Red Crescent and civil defense workers were on a mission to rescue colleagues who had been shot at earlier in the day when their clearly marked vehicles came under heavy Israeli fire in Rafah City's Tel al-Sultan district. A Red Crescent official in Gaza said that there was evidence of at least one person being detained and killed as the body of one of the dead had been found with his hands tied. So, an execution, in other words. The shootings happened on March 23rd, one day into the renewed Israeli offensive in the area close to the Egyptian border. Another Red Crescent worker on the mission is reported missing. 7 days ago, Civil Defense and PRCS ambulances arrived at the scene, the head of OCHA in Palestine, Jonathan Wittall, said in a video statement. One by one, the paramedics and civil defense workers were hit. They were struck. Their bodies were gathered and buried in this mass grave. So here is a video of Jonathan. Now, the bodies are kind of blurred out here, but you can still see the scene that they're talking about, along with some more commentary.
This should never be a target, and yet we're here today digging up a mass grave of first responders and paramedics. 7 days ago, civil defense and PRCS ambulances arrived at the scene. One by one, they were hit, they were struck. Their bodies were gathered and buried in this mass grave. We're digging them out in their uniforms, with their gloves on. They were here to save lives. Instead, they ended up in a mass grave. Their vehicles, their ambulances, UN vehicles, civil defense vehicles are crushed and dumped, covered in sand next to us. It's an absolute horror. What has happened here? This should never happen. Healthcare workers should never be a target.
So, again, this hits slightly different after just seeing, a movie like No Other Land, where you just see on camera IDF soldiers shooting at unarmed people, fleeing, getting away with it, paralyzing people, killing people. And this was clearly a deliberate execution, one by one, Nazi style, camp style. Israel's military said its initial assessment of the incident had found that its troops had opened fire on several vehicles, quote, advancing suspiciously toward IDF troops without headlights or emergency signals. It added that the movement of the vehicle had not been coordinated with the IDF in advance and that the area was an active combat zone. The Red Crescent said that the Tel al-Sultan district had been considered safe and movement there was normal, requiring no coordination. According to the Red Crescent, an ambulance was dispatched to pick up the casualties from the airstrike in the early hours of March 23rd and called for a support ambulance. The first ambulance arrived at hospital safely, but contact was lost with the support ambulance at 3:30 a.m. An initial report from the scene said it had been shot at and the two paramedics inside had been killed. A convoy of 5 vehicles, including ambulances, civil defense trucks, and 2 cars from the health ministry, were sent to retrieve the bodies. That convoy then came under fire, and the Red Crescent said most of the dead were from that attack. 8 of the dead were from the Red Crescent, 6 from civil defense, and 1 was a UN employee. Dr. Bashar Murad, the Red Crescent's director of health programs, said one of the paramedics in the convoy had been on a call to his colleagues at the ambulance station when the attack took place. He informed us that he was injured and requested assistance, and that another person was also injured, Murad said. A few minutes later, during the call, we heard the sound of Israeli soldiers arriving at the location, speaking in Hebrew. The conversation was about gathering the team with statements like, gather them at the wall and bring some restraints to tie them. This indicated that a large number of the medical staff were still alive. Yeah, I'll take it a step further. It suggests they were not only still alive, but they were alive and being ordered around by the IDF soldiers. It suggests that they were in control of them, which means that what happens next, according to the reporting, is just all the more merciless. The Palestinian Red Crescent president, Yunus al-Khatib, said the IDF had impeded the collection of the bodies for several days. The IDF said it had facilitated the evacuation of bodies as soon as operational circumstances allowed. The bodies were recovered with difficulty as they were buried in the sand, with some showing signs of decomposition, the Red Crescent said. Jens Lark, an OSHA spokesperson in Geneva, said the available information indicates that the first team was killed by Israeli forces on March 23rd, and that other emergency and aid crews were struck one after another over several hours as they searched for their missing colleagues. They were buried under the sand alongside their wrecked emergency vehicles, clearly marked ambulances, a fire truck, and a UN car. So this seems to me like an execution took place, and then they tried to make it as difficult as possible for the bodies to be recovered, i.e., for evidence of this crime to be unfolded, or to be unearthed, I should say. But of course, they were found, as we saw in that video earlier. So let's hear what our State Department has to say about this. So this is Trump's Morlock here. I forget her name.
Vampirella.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Vampirella. Here she is being asked about this incident.
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
On Gaza, the UN's Humanitarian Affairs Office has said that 15 paramedics, civil defense, and a UN worker were killed, in their words, one by one by the IDF. They have dug bodies up, they said, in the shallow grave that have been gathered up. And also vehicles in the sand. Have you got any assessment of what might have happened, and given the potential use of American weapons, is there any assessment of whether or not this complied with international law?
Well, I can tell you that for too long, Hamas has abused civilian infrastructure, cynically using it to shield themselves. Hamas's actions have caused humanitarians to be caught in the crossfire. The use of civilians or civilian objects to shield or impede military operations is itself a violation of international humanitarian law. And of course, we expect all parties on the ground to comply with international humanitarian law.
Okay, so just the absurdity there, it's almost not even worth commenting
It's
on.
just gobbledygook.
I mean, it's just gobbledygook. Like, what are you talking about? There were no Hamas people killed. These were medics who were going in to rescue other medics who were shot one after the other, suggesting full knowledge on the part of the IDF.
They executed them.
They executed them. Full knowledge of who they were and why they were where they were. That's very important, because when you kill them one after another after the other, it's clear that people are going in to rescue the people who have already been shot at. Many of them killed. Some of them, these subsequent teams thought they could rescue, and then they were fired upon. So this has all the markings of just premeditated executions of medical personnel, or as she would call it, civilian infrastructure. So ambulances are civilian infrastructure that Hamas can use. So at that point, what reason is there not to fire on everybody? None. Exactly. And that's what they want to say. And she goes on to say it. She goes on to say it in plain English.
But there's specifically a question on any. It's a question about accounting and accountability, given that it may have been the use of US weapons. So it's a question about the State Department rather than Hamas. Is there any action?
Well, every single thing that is happening in Gaza is happening because of Hamas. Every single dynamic. I'll say again, I've said it, I think.
Okay, so that's it. That's what I mean.
Yeah. It doesn't matter what Israel does.
Doesn't matter what they do. It doesn't matter what they do.
They could get some Zyklon B and start gassing people in a camp. It's Hamas's fault.
Exactly.
In every briefing, all of this could stop in a moment if Hamas returned all the hostages and the hostage bodies they are still holding and put down its weapons. There is one entity that could stop it for everyone in a moment, and that is Hamas. All loss of life is regrettable. It's key, obviously. Whoever it is, wherever they live, and this has been the nature of what fuels Secretary Rubio and President Trump in their willingness to expend this kind of capital early on in this term to make a difference and to change the situation. So I think that is the one thing that remains clear in all of this, which is all for all of us, which is why we work to stop it.
I know that's
a horrible dynamic.
There is
Yes,
only
you are.
one entity in the world, it seems, who thinks that Hamas can stop this anytime they want, and that is the United States. Not even many of the Israeli institutions. Haaretz, the paper of record in Israel, says it's Netanyahu's fault that the ceasefire did not follow through, did not go from phase 1 into phase 2, into phase 3. That's the Israeli paper of record. The Israeli population understands that Netanyahu blew up the ceasefire deal. So the only entity on earth that is going with this line and this narrative is the United States government. That's it. Everybody else knows that what you're saying is absolute nonsense. There is a ceasefire deal in place. Netanyahu said repeatedly he did not want to go to phase 2. He wanted to extend phase 1 as far as he could to get as many people back before committing to a permanent peace. He said that 1,000 fucking times. Haaretz is reporting that. The Israeli press is reporting that. The Israelis understand that. And yet we still, everything that happens is because, so that means what? Israel could do whatever they want. Doesn't matter. Whatever happens in this place.
Well, clearly.
Yeah, is the fault of one group. It's just unbelievable.
I mean, it's a change in style, not substance. They could do whatever they wanted before. The only difference under Count Morlock was he would say, yes, well, the Israelis are going to investigate
and get back to this.
The president has spoken about this, and we need an investigation. That's the only difference. They're just like, yep, not Hamas, la 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 la.
That's it.
Hamas. That's all. That's it. But I mean, the effect is the same.
Yeah,
like
the effect is the exact same.
I don't feel this wouldn't have happened under Biden.
Oh, no, of course not. No, Morlock would have said, well, yeah, it's very concerning, and our Israeli partners are looking into it, and we'll get back to you. Get back to you when? He's out there. They're out of office now. All those promises that Matthew Miller made, we'll get back to you, we'll get back to you, we'll get back to you. What do we say? Yep. Especially, I mean, it was especially absurd in the lame duck session where we knew that they were on the way out, and we'll get back to you. We'll get back. But now they don't say we'll get back to you.
They've taken up their jobs as tobacco lobbyists now.
Yeah, right, exactly. No, now it's just none of this is Israel's fault at all. They can execute medics one after another, bury them in shallow graves, and prevent people from finding them for as long as they can.
Can you imagine if Russia did this? China did this? If any country we have an antagonistic relationship with did this?
Right.
They would be screaming to the heavens about it.
Yep. And the impunity, it hits a little more viscerally after you watch a movie like No Other Land, where you really just see even interactions with the IDF that do not result in bloodshed, because in that movie, there's probably about 8 run-ins with the occupying army that the villagers have. And not all of them turn violent, but all of them are of the dynamic of the old Jewish ghettos with the German Nazis. That's what it's like. I mean, that is what an interaction with Nazis is like. Even the ones that don't turn violent. And the ones that do turn violent, they happen. The soldiers, they shot a guy. He ended up paralyzed for life. They leave the scene. They kill a guy in one scene. I don't think I have to worry about spoilers in this context. And they leave the scene. I mean, it is a Nazi-like force. It's a Nazi-like dynamic.
Well,
and
it's
yeah.
I mean, of course, the same dynamic, because it's the same underlying dehumanization of the enemy.
Right.
For much of the Nazi forces, they had been convinced that all the evils of the world were caused by Jews. So at that point, what's not justified?
Right.
It's the same thing. It's the same thing. They've been told that the Palestinians are an extension of the Nazis, and that by lashing out at them, they are redeeming that past. They're taking revenge for that past. These people have an unreasoning hatred of Jews, and so we have to kill them before they kill us. And at that point, that's why you have, a lot of these people are just kids. They're just kids. They have been so brainwashed from childhood to not see these as human beings that nothing is not justified to them. We did that segment, I think, on Jimmy's, of where they interviewed random people on the street, and you have them saying, well, children grow up to be Arabs.
Right. Exactly.
That's the mentality, man. I've experienced it myself as an American Jew. Forget about what they tell them over there.
Oh yeah. No, it's just It's wild. I mean, the scene in the movie, these settlers just come in, the settler just picks up a rock and just throws it at one of the Arabs for no reason. No reason.
Right.
Because that's
Right.
the level
Yep.
of
Yep.
anger and hatred that they carry with them at all times. And so when you watch a thing like that and then you read a thing like this, it's easy to picture how that goes down. It's very easy to just visualize that. That could have been a scene in the documentary that we saw. Different region, obviously. This movie was about the West Bank. This is in Rafah. But same thing, same dynamic. And to think that this is really what undergirds our status as a global hegemon, yeah. I mean, this is a major moment in history, not just for Israel, but for the United States and for the West more broadly. The fact that it is not mainstream opinion, that this is just overt Nazism happening every single day in broad daylight. That just shows you who we are and what we're dealing with here.
There will be a tipping point. And you are going to see a lot of books written, just like books are written about why the Germans did what they did, what was going on in Germany, and what the psychological processes were that led to that. We've talked about this in regards to our friend Daryl Cooper, how this is probably the most written about historical subject, certainly of anything in the 20th century. I would argue possibly more writing has been done trying to dissect the Nazi regime. The only thing that might compete with it is the fall of Rome.
Right.
But there's an obsession with this subject. You're going to see that with this, and for the same reason, because it's such a study in sociology, in group dynamics, in propaganda. There will, when this control that the Zionist lobby has over the conversation crumbles, and it will. In the end, things like that are never sustainable. In the end, the truth will out. There is going to be a lot of ink spilled about how this people had experienced this Holocaust, and in the process of trying to redeem themselves from the shame, from the horror of that, became the Nazis. That is going to be the common understanding of this, just as the common understanding of Germany is the reparations drove them to that. That's kind of 101. 101 is going to be the Holocaust turned them into the monsters that they thought they were fighting against.
Yep. Absolutely. 100%. Me shoot Skeets says, I was a Marine. J.D. Vance was a Marine. A lot of idiots in the Marines who think just like him. Gavin Hillock says, Ulster is the northern province of Ireland, now mostly Northern Ireland, Britain's first settler colony, hence the Irish-Palestinian connection. Oh, gotcha. Ava, session 7, geez, is life as it is beginning to look like Snowpiercer? Ah, good reference there. Thank you. Theodore LaRue, thanks for the $4.99. Are y'all going to be at the protest this Saturday? I think Indivisible et al. Are involved, but I'm going. Good. There is one in Albany that I'm going to try to get to. Unfortunately, Amanda is working, and I got the baby here. And then I'm going to see Jimmy that night because he's in Cohoes that night. But there's a big day of action on April 5th, which we'll plug on Thursday for sure. But yes, if you can find one, go to one. Ethan Darcy, thanks for the $2, took down the human shields one by one. Yeah, indeed. Ukraine is gone. Black Rockistan now. There you go. I like that. Hypernorm. Appreciate that. John M. in Minnesota, huge new expose in New York Times. The partnership, secret history of war in Ukraine. Short version, we would have beat those Ruskies if not for the Ukraine military being so inept. Oh, is that right?
I was thinking about doing that for today, but it was just too much.
Yeah, I hadn't heard about it. Maybe Thursday.
Yeah, they did a whole, and Taibbi did a pretty good article about it.
Huh, interesting. Ken G, it's scary how connected everything is. Virginia Giuffre is also accused Naomi Campbell of being close friends with Ghislaine Maxwell and knowing what was going on with trafficking. Interesting. That bitch is the horse face of the apocalypse. Thank you, Nocturnal Human. Appreciate that. Yes, the horse face of the apocalypse. A good one. Okay, since this is Pinchin Week, does that mean that every time Elon Musk gets an erection for potential baby mama, one of his SpaceX satellites goes into orbit? There you go. Thank you, Kenman. Appreciate that.
I don't think it's a coincidence that David Lynch recently died and it seems like he's taken over directing the universe.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, there you go. B199, can we watch the movie night stream on replay? Well, it's there. It is there. It'll be up for another couple days. So yeah, and it's ad free, of course. So yeah, it is viewable if you become a member for sure. Okay, let's do our final segment of the day. This is one that we were supposed to do on Sunday, but we lost track of time.
All right, so there was a time when America would start to slide towards fascism or take another step towards fascism, that people would say, I'm going to go to Canada. I'm going to go to Europe. But arguably, in many ways regarding speech, it's actually worse in those countries than it is here, at least for the time being. We're doing everything we can to catch up. But a couple years back in England, there was a lot of debate around this. England passed the Police and Crime Bill, which here you see, means that someone exercising their democratic rights could suffer 10 years in prison for doing an act that risks serious annoyance. So they included the relevant paperwork here. And you can see here in Article A, person does an act that causes serious harm to the public or a section of the public, and down here in Section C, for the purposes of subsection 1, an act or omission causes serious harm to a person if, as a result, the person suffers serious distress, serious annoyance, serious inconvenience, or serious loss of amenity, or is put at risk of suffering anything mentioned in paragraphs A to C. It's very British, suffering serious annoyance.
Right.
British in a Terry Gilliam's Brazil kind of mood. On conviction, on indictment to imprisonment for a term not exceeding 10 years to a fine or to both. Okay. So potentially in England, this was kind of designed to tamp down on protest that they deem disruptive to the public. Potentially, if someone finds your protest annoying, you could be sentenced to 10 years in prison under that law. The late, great John Pilger here commented on this. The Police Crime Sentencing and Courts Bill plans something close to a police state in Britain. It will make real protest a crime and condone crime by the police. It is a thug's law. Wake up from the COVID dream, Britain, and stop it. And here, this kind of sums it up in this meme, why you should be worried about the Police Crime Sentencing and Courts Bill and the penalties affecting your right to protest. Vandalizing a statue, 10 years in jail. Creating a public nuisance, 10 years in jail. Residing in a protest camp, £2,500 fine or 3 months in jail. Using megaphone at Parliament, £5,000 fine. One person protest, £2,500 fine or 1 year in jail. Yes, that's exactly what it sounds like. One person protesting. That can be the sentence. The public, and then they double down with another bill, the Public Order Bill. This is in 2023. The Public Order Bill is already deeply illiberal, treating peaceful protest like knife crime. Now the government want to make it even easier for police to prevent protest, even where the suspect will be serious disruption. So number 10 said the changes would mean police would not have to wait for disruption to take place to shut down a protest. It said forces could also consider the total impact of a series of protests by the same group rather than seeing them as standalone incidents. Okay, so you're combining pre-crime and the RICO statute in the Public Order Bill, which did pass, by the way. So suspicion that you're going to do something disruptive, they can arrest you for under this. So literally, they can get you for pre-crime. And holding all members of a group like, say, Extinction Rebellion, responsible for the acts of any one of its members, that's essentially the RICO statute.
Right.
So if you're in a crime family, you can be held responsible for the murders committed by, obviously that's an American law, but they're bringing over that concept. Now, I say for the time being, it's even worse over there than here, because that's essentially the logic that they're trying to apply to anti-Zionist protests, right? If anybody within the whole spectrum of anti-Zionist protests commits a crime, well, you're part of a criminal enterprise if you
Right.
protest against Zionism. That's very much the logic they're applying when they lock up these green card holders and girl for woman for writing a op-ed. So here's where that gets you. Coming to an American Quaker meeting house near you, for now, not here yet. Quakers condemn arrests of activists at meeting house. The Metropolitan Police said 6 people were arrested on Thursday evening at the Westminster Meeting House on suspicion of conspiracy to cause a public nuisance. The force said it came amid concerns there were plans to shut down London during April using tactics such as roadblocks. Youth Demand, which is not affiliated with the Quakers, said the meeting was, quote, an opportunity to share plans for nonviolent civil resistance actions due to take place in April. The group claimed a number of houses were also raided on Thursday and Friday as part of the operation. Previous demonstrations by Youth Demand included 3 people hanging a banner and laying rows of children's shoes outside Sir Keir Starmer's home in April last year, following which 3 people in their 20s were handed suspended prison sentences. More of the group's members were arrested last July after they announced plans to disrupt the state opening of Parliament. So this is a video from one of their members about what happened.
That's the UN. They're not exactly.
Not her
Sorry.
again. She's no
Not
Quaker.
her. Well, actually, she was very concerned about this impingement on their rights. Sorry about that.
Today evening, I went to a publicly advertised Youth Demand event. This was a welcome talk where everyone was welcome to come and hear who we are as a campaign, come and hear the plan in April. And the police showed up. And now we're not talking about just a couple of cops. We're talking about roughly 30 police breaking down the door of a Quaker meeting house, storming in, arresting everyone on conspiracy to cause a public nuisance, seizing everyone's phones and laptops, and then dragging everyone away to custody. We still have 3 people from that welcome talk in custody. We're going to a welcome talk. Like, this is insane. This is the level of state repression that we are living in, and this is a massive wake-up call. But I think what's really important to take from this is that it means that what we're doing is working. They are putting massive resources into shutting us down before we've even started because they know what we are capable of. We are a community of resistance and we are powerful. Just hours after we heard that people had been arrested, we mobilized, we got out and we cared for our community and we are coming back stronger. We will not be deterred. We will let this fuel us because we know that it means that we are winning. It means that the government, that the police, that the state is afraid of us, that they recognize the power that we have. The police take our movement seriously, so it's time that we take ourselves seriously too. It's time that we get together to shut London down in April. And you can start by joining us on Tuesday, the 1st of April, 6:30 p.m., Mallet Street outside the Senate House Library. We'll see you on the streets.
So theoretically, that meeting is happening right now as we speak.
Right.
So I hope some of you are not watching this except on the replay. I hope you're there.
Right.
Some of our British friends. London is our number 2 city after New York.
That's right.
So hopefully some of our folks are at that meeting. So this is the Quakers online magazine covering this. Quakers in Britain strongly condemned the violation of their place of worship, which they say is a direct result of stricter protest laws, removing virtually all routes to challenge the status quo. Just before 7:15 p.m., more than 20 uniformed police, some equipped with tasers, forced their way into Westminster Meeting House. They broke open the front door without warning or ringing the bell first, searching the whole building, and arresting 6 women attending the meeting in a hired room. The Police Crime Sentencing and Courts Act 2022 and the Public Order Act 2023 have criminalized many forms of protest and allow police to halt actions deemed too disruptive. Meanwhile, changes in judicial procedures limit protesters' ability to defend their actions in court. All this means that there are fewer and fewer ways to speak truth to power. Quakers support the right to nonviolent public protest, acting themselves from a deep moral imperative to stand up against injustice and for our planet. Many have taken nonviolent direct action over the centuries, from the abolition of slavery to women's suffrage and prison reform. Paul Parker, recording clerk for Quakers in Britain, said, quote, "No one has been arrested in a Quaker meeting house in living memory. This aggressive violation of our place of worship and the forceful removal of young people holding a protest group meeting clearly shows what happens when a society criminalizes protest. Freedom of speech, assembly, and fair trials are an essential part of free public debate, which underpins our democracy." Now, most countries, all countries really outside the United States, obviously do not have a First Amendment. Some of them have something like it or approximating it. But it's my understanding, folks can correct us in the comments if I'm wrong, no other country has quite as robust an article of law protecting free speech. In this country right now, I think it's inevitable that that is where this administration is going. They're starting with the immigrants. They're starting with the green card holders. It's not going to be very long, in my estimation, before they're going to try to use the Patriot Act, in all likelihood, as a way of shutting down the First Amendment's ability to protect freedom of speech, freedom of protest. But in countries like England, where they really don't have anything like that, and that includes all of Europe, where the Digital Services Act is in force, where they emphatically defend the idea of arresting people for online speech, it's very dangerous. And it's funny that J.D. Vance went and gave this big speech about that. He wasn't wrong, but it was very revealing what he didn't talk about, which was all of the Palestine reporters being arrested, all of the people reporting on the crimes of Israel getting arrested, particularly in England, but in other places, Germany as well, getting deported, very much like here, but for different reasons. And he didn't mention that because they want to do that here. He only talked about culture war stuff. He only talked about people who are against abortion getting arrested, things that they're not going to do, things that they don't have an interest in doing. And it really puts anyone who's thinking they want to get away from what's happening in this country by going to a place with more freedom, very limited options. I honestly, I don't know really where you go. Certainly there's nowhere right now, it seems, within the Western world where freedom of speech and freedom of protest is not under assault.
Yeah, no, I mean, look, in America, I don't know what the laws are there, but I know in America, Quakers are conscientious objectors, right? I mean, they can get out of military service. Right.
Who
Like, of
signed
all
off on
groups.
that?
Yeah.
Who signed off on breaking into a Quaker meeting house? It really doesn't get much worse than that.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Now, there are, instances where they've faced like persecution for that. But I mean, these are people who, these are the most, by definition, they're the most nonviolent people.
That's their whole thing. Except
on
for
Earth.
Nixon.
That's
They're still
their whole
trying to
thing.
live down Nixon.
Yeah, exactly. So the idea to sick the goons on the Quakers, it's just it's not laughable because it's very scary, but it is, I would say, darkly comic that they would choose that group, and really just indicative.
Just the optics of it, it's kind of amazing that
Yeah.
someone in charge thought that was a good idea.
Yeah. I mean, it's indicative of just their psychopathic tendencies. And the fact that this is all happening to protect Israel just makes this, just all the more a reckoning for the West. This is a reckoning for the West. When you look up close at the crimes of Israel and then you look at the lengths that the entire Western world will go to protect them from any accountability for those crimes, even political accountability in terms of like public sentiment. Like what's actually concretely going to happen as a result of these protests? Unfortunately, it seems like very little in the short term. In the short term, that's not to say they're not important. One of the things that's inspiring about the No Other Land documentary is these villagers keep going out and they keep protesting no matter
amazing.
what.
The courage and the grace of those people is just hard to even imagine.
Yeah, of course. And so I'm not trying to say it's meaningless, but I'm talking about in this context where you're talking about, okay, there's a Quakers for Palestine meeting, let's go rouse them. I mean, what are you doing? What are you doing? Besides showing your ass, man. And there is no place to hide. Because this is a Western project, man. I mean, this is really, I mean, in all seriousness, you got to either go to Russia if you want to talk like this, or you got to go south of the border, Brazil, Ecuador.
Well, that's why we were talking about this. That's why so many of our peers in the space are south of the border, or Thailand is very popular.
Right.
With a lot of our peers. Yeah, there's a reason for that. And particularly the people who do a lot of what Whitney does, a lot of the conspiracy stuff, people who get really into international geopolitics. Yeah, man, they don't want to get garroted with a piano wire in the middle of the night. They get out of here.
Yeah, no, it's really brutal. It really is a very, very scary time. And I agree that on the domestic side, this is what they will absolutely extend that power to. This feels, ironically, you know what this feels much more like than any other time in history? It feels like the Bush years again. That's what it does. For all the fucking talk. All the talk. No, but I mean,
it's
that's
the Bush years on
example.
steroids.
Yeah, it's the closest example. Yeah. And it's funny because, Donald Trump was supposed to represent this break from that era of Republican Party politics, but not the case. Not the case.
Well, it's very much like the Clinton ascension was supposed to be a break with Reaganism, when it was really the consummation of it.
Exactly. Yep. 100%. All right. Well, given that this ad read is more fun and makes more sense, so this is a fun one. We haven't done this one before, but hey, this stuff might come in handy. My Tactical Promos are giving away their best-selling outdoor mystery boxes worth up to $600 for absolutely free. No hidden charges, no recurring fees, none of that BS. Just cover shipping. So if you're interested, go ahead and scan the QR code on the screen right now. Imagine unpacking night vision goggles, a mini chainsaw, a rugged shoulder bag, and who knows what else. The thrill of the unknown is part of the adventure, right, folks? And this is not your ordinary giveaway. My Tactical Promos is on a mission to find out who among you are smart enough to take opportunities when they present themselves. But hurry, stocks are flying off the shelves, and they would not want you to miss it. This offer is valid for today only, so free stuff, free survivalist outdoor stuff could come in handy given the subject matter of the show today. All you got to do is cover the shipping, and the outdoor survival box is all yours. Will you claim this free offer or let it slip away? Don't wait. Hit the Claim Now button and let the adventure begin with a free mystery box courtesy of us. But remember, the clock is ticking, and this offer won't last. So claim your free mystery box from Tactical Promos today. Yeah, they'll send you like a mini chainsaw. They'll send you some night vision goggles. It's free. I mean, whatever the shipping is. Yeah,
that's cool.
Free stuff that, like I said, all stuff that could come in handy. How'd you like getting a mini chainsaw in the mail? That's
Absolutely.
fun.
I mean, this is part of why I'm looking to move upstate, man. I want to stock up on some MREs. I don't have space for that here.
Yeah, I don't have space for that.
Besides that, the marauding hordes will come and cut my throat in 5 minutes in New York City with
that's
stuff.
true. That's true.
You gotta be a little out in the backwoods where nobody can find you.
Right. Yes, indeed. All right, let's see what we got in terms of Rumble Rants, Super Chats, and the like before we close the lights. Pardon me. on today's stream. We got Vito P over here on Rumble. Thanks for the $10, Vito. If this gig doesn't work out, Tom Homan could be cast as Mumbles from Dick Tracy. Cancer sucks, you guys rock. Yeah, that is good. That's good. That's good.
That's a
good one. That's who Tammy Bruce. I knew. I always forget her name, but now I will remember it. Tammy Bruce was a conservative lesbian that filled in for Ingram on radio. She rode Palin's coattails to Fox News. Yep, now she's State Department spokesperson. Nocturnal Human, now everyone go buy Quaker oatmeal. There's a Quaker oatmeal factory near me. There you go. Thank you, Nocturnal Human. Appreciate that. Okay, we're going to head over to the YouTube side and take these last chats here. Just one more super sticker from Brent Yoendo. Thanks for the $5 and the Keep It Up super sticker. Appreciate that very much. All right, folks, that's our show. We appreciate you being here today. There will be some news breaking tonight. Those special elections going on, so news junkies will have plenty to glue your head to the screen later tonight, and then we will be back on Thursday noontime, back at our regular time slot this Thursday, 12 p.m. Eastern. Please hit that like button on the way out. Please hit that subscribe button on the way out on the YouTube side, that follow button over on the Rumble side. Once again, if you would like to become a member, we're going to leave our No Other Land Film Club episode up for another couple of days. DoDissidents.locals is where you go for that. If you're watching on Rumble now, you can join our locals by smashing that bright red join button underneath the video screen where you see us right now. Everybody else, we will see you back here Thursday, 12 p.m. Eastern. Until then, thanks for being with us this afternoon. Be safe and be well.
Courage!
Please clap.